IB Nation, welcome back to the Irish Breakdown podcast, live here on a Friday, which of course means a little Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. Going to talk some of the latest in recruiting from this past week. We're also going to talk about priority board for the 2025 offensive class and where things are. So it's going to be a little bit of a hot board section. Where are the positions that are still need to be filled? Who are the players to know? Who is Notre Dame in great positions for? We'll talk about that in the second section. Mailbag at the end as well. So make sure you put in mailbag questions at any time during the show. I monitored the chat before we started here, Sean. Some people are very anxious to get the show going. I would just like to say, and I'm joined by Sean Davis, co-host of the Lucky Lefty podcast, as well as a recruiting analyst here at irishbreakdown.com. Sean, people need to forgive me. It was my fault that we were a little bit tardy, but I have put out probably more content in 1 week this week than I ever have in my entire life, man. This is folks, Notre Dame coaches are on the road. The 2024 Reese's Senior Bowl is working right now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening right now, man. So please forgive me. The work will be done. We will make this a great show. But Sean, it's been a very busy week, my friend. Very busy.
Busy and a very good week. If you're talking about Notre Dame, whether it's the good news coming out of the Senior Bowl about several Notre Dame players, some of the vibes we get from possible commitments moving forward and where Notre Dame stands with recruits. It's just a really good time to be part of the Notre Dame family, to cover the recruiting, cover the guys there at the Senior Bowl. It's a lot of work, but it's good work. I would much rather write the articles we're writing and cover what we're covering, like Chad Bowden staying. I would rather cover that than to come on here today and talk about the impact of recruiting after Chad Bowden left. That would have been a tough show.
That's a good point, Sean, because look, I'm just hustle and bustle this week, but it's all been good news for the most part, right? Like there hasn't been a ton of negativity that has come across the airwaves here. I'm just saying, man, like I know Salty throws in a little jab, low bar for Ryan, whatever. Salty, I have written 20 something articles this week. I've probably done 7 or 8 podcasts this week. I've been doing a lot of stuff, man. Give me a little bit of credit, okay? It's been a little bit of hustle and bustle. But so if anybody wants to
managing 2 girls, I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, as if being a parent wasn't enough. Yeah,
as a fellow girl dad, I have empathy for you, my brother.
I appreciate you, my friend. I really, really do greatly appreciate that. So we'll be answering anything in the mailbag that you all want. Obviously, it's a recruiting show. You want to ask recruiting questions? Great. You want to ask about Notre Dame? Great. You want to ask about the 2024 Reese's Senior Bowl? Great. We can handle everything. We'll go into other sports. We'll go into our personal lives if you want to go there. I don't know. But regardless, it is your part of the podcast at the end here where we'll hit the mailbag. But Sean, want to start out with some of the recent news. All good stuff. All very good stuff. 2025, and this was already on the board at boards@irishbreakdown.com. Literally, me and Sean broke down this news minutes after it was announced. So on the 8th, February 8th, this upcoming Thursday, I guess now, since we're on a Friday, 2025 offensive tackle from Waukesha, Wisconsin, Catholic Memorial, Owen Strebig will be announcing his commitments, his finalists coming into that commitments. Notre Dame, USC, Florida State, Miami, and Wisconsin. Sean, those are the finalists for Mr. Owen Strebig. We've talked about this on the message board. People shouldn't have any confusion here because we've been talking about this one for many weeks and many months at this point. But yes, for the people that are just going to genuinely ask, do we feel good about where Notre Dame is with Owen Strebig going into that decision? Absolutely. Absolutely. Notre Dame's in a good spot. You don't have a kid come visit 6 different times and to become to develop great relationships with the other commits in the 2025 class if you didn't have a very good chance. Now, that being said, That being said, Wisconsin's done a great job. USC has done a great job. And a couple of the Florida schools, I would say, have piqued Owen's interest throughout the process as well, Sean. So some schools have done a really good job with Owen Strebig. But we feel that Notre Dame is the team to beat right now. Now, I guess there's several days to close this guy out if you want to kind of portray it that way. But obviously, Notre Dame he's been the front runner here for a long time for one of the best offensive tackles in the 2025 class.
Yeah, like we broke down this film, Double R. He is a fantastic talent, has been so since we saw his film in his sophomore season. And it will be a huge get, right? But really, let's pay homage to the work. Because a lot of times we have to be critical on the recruiting trail, just, chasing these stories and figuring out what's happening. But to transition from and be in the shadow of one Harry Heastand, I think the questions have been answered by Joe Rudolph. The way things are trending, I think he has shifted the profile of that room a little bit as far as size. He has also shown himself to be able to close. The one thing we have still yet to see, Ryan, I think you will agree, in-game coaching, in-game adjustments, and the offensive line in tough games and tough environments. That was something we saw on the road at Duke, on the road at Louisville, on the road at Clemson. Offensive line not as good as on the road at North Carolina State, at home in other games. Right? So
absolutely.
I think that's the next thing, the next box that needs to be checked by Joe Rudolph. But from a recruiting standpoint, I think we both have to feel good about the direction of the offensive line from a recruiting standpoint.
Oh, I mean, Sean, it's in a great spot because although, I mean, we're just talking 2024 roster now, like even forget about 2025 for a second. Notre Dame has a lot of talent there, man. It's going to be a weird year on the offensive line considering there's not a ton of proven talent coming back. It's all young and pretty inexperienced. I mean, you're going to bring back Tosh Baker, if he's a starting right tackle. He started a few games a couple years ago, right out of necessity. The year that Joe Alt came in and he was, playing a little bit of left tackle at that point. So we've seen him in games, obviously at Notre Dame, but he doesn't have a ton of starting experience. Billy Schrouth doesn't have a ton of starting experience if he is the starting right guard in 2024. Ashton Craig started a few games down the stretch for Notre Dame, and I thought he looked really good at center. I honestly thought, full transparency, we've talked about this a ton. I hope Zeke Correll does a great job at NC State, Sean. I thought Ashton Craig was just a better player than Zeke Correll this season. Just thought he was better. Straight up. I mean, like, honesty, right?
Even in the small sample size, you got that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I really did, man. Because I thought I thought we were just talking about Strebig. So yeah, I thought Zeke played pretty well against Ohio State this year, but I didn't think he really had a really good game otherwise. Like I thought he was okay in a couple others. I didn't think he was great though. I think that, and this is me projecting forward a little bit, I think Ashton Craig gives you a much higher ceiling than what Zeke Correll does. Zeke's a solid, good starting center in college football. But I think that Ashton Craig can be a very good center in college football, maybe even a star. I mean, I think he has that type of upside to him. So although he's incredibly talented, he is a projection to a degree. You haven't seen him as much. You haven't seen him in Notre Dame games as much as you have in some others, right? Or with some others. So he's a question. Pat Coogan coming back. He is technically your most experienced offensive lineman, right? From a snap perspective from this past year. Started every football game. But I think most Notre Dame fans would agree, and I don't necessarily disagree. I think that Pat should be up for the starting job, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Pat Coogan should be your starting left guard next year. I don't think it should be. And then potentially having Charles, the artist formerly known as Charles Jagasaw at left tackle, who has started one football game, Sean, a single football game. Now, if you ask me, just that group, how talented is it? Stupid talented. I mean, if you told me in a couple years that Ashton Craig got drafted in the top 100 for the NFL draft, if you told me Billy Schrouth is in the same conversation, if you told me that Charles Jagasaw was a first-round draft pick, I would believe you. I would wholeheartedly believe you because he has that type of talent. But it's unproven, Sean. But I think that to strengthen your point is the fact that it's not a lack of talent that's going to be in that room, though. I mean, you're going to have Gearby Lambert coming in. You're going to have Sam Pendleton, Sullivan Absher fighting for opportunities. Joe Otting, some of these young guys, Christopher Tarrick, the rest of the 2024 class, not including, you're going to include Anthony Knapp into that conversation. You're going to include Styles Prescott. You're going to include Peter Jones. It's a very talented room Notre Dame has. It's inexperienced, but ultra talented. And I think that's going to continue in 2025 because you already have Will Black in the class, who I like a lot. I think Will's a really good player. Owen Strebig would be a more highly rated player for me if he ends up in Notre Dame, though, because that kid, you can't teach some of the stuff he has, Sean. Like, you can't teach it. I can't teach 6'8", 290. I can teach a technique. I can help your hand usage, your independent hand usage and pass protection. I can improve footwork. I can't teach the athletic gifts that young man has.
But this is the thing. Someone made a point in the chat. Good point. Watch this film. Y'all still worry about pass pro. Dude, I don't know offensive lineman that you don't have to worry about pass pro coming out of high school.
I worried about pass pro with Charles Jagasaw coming out of high school too. I mean,
because what it goes back to the fact that in high school, and this is what I love about Owen Strebig. You can watch his film and tell that he works at technique. You could tell that he's focused on anchoring and setting down. A bull rush is not, he doesn't face prominent bull rushes week to week. So, I mean, he could just literally not be technically sound and just overpower kids. But if you watch his film, you can tell that he's trying to focus on technique, which tells me that he's a willing learner. Number one, he wants to get better. And you team that with the fact that he has really good feet. Because you talked about it. You can teach footwork, but teaching footwork to a kid that has really good feet and teaching footwork to a kid that struggles and doesn't have good feet, it's two totally different things. Yes, you can teach, but it's a lot easier to teach one than it is to teach the other.
Agreed.
So when you talk about the talent, that's what you have to feel great about.
Yep. And I think a point that you're making, Sean, is that Owen has every tool in the toolbox to be really good in both areas. I mean, there was a video that he posted, I think maybe a few weeks ago, where he was box jumping over 30 inches. Like, this is a 6'8", 290 plus pound kid that, I mean, he's a good athlete, man. And to your point, he has personal trainers he works with. He has outside coaching. He works his butt off, man. He really does. So, yeah, I think that he has high potential on the next level. If Notre Dame lands him, Sean, it's big time. Because if Coach Rudolph can develop, and look, the jury's still out there, sort of, but also he's done a pretty good job at other places. Like at Wisconsin, he did a pretty good job developing guys. You know who he found when he was at Pittsburgh? Brian O'Neill, who's one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL right now. That was a under-recruited tight end, high school tight end that he developed into a first-round draft pick. Or was he he was a first-round draft pick, I think, out of Pitt. So, and he's developed into a very good offensive tackle in his career for the Minnesota Vikings. So, as long as Lauren Landau and Joe Rudolph. Lando, I'm sorry.
It's Lando. We just found out today via email that it's Lando.
Did you really? Did you?
Yes.
Lando. Okay. Interesting. I wouldn't think that I would think that it would be a soft A sound in his name, but okay, Lando. So as long as Coach Lando and Coach Rudolph are able to develop that room physically and then technically, I think that adding a guy like Owen Strebig could be massive. Quite literally massive with the size he brings, but also with the talent that he brings to the table as well. Like, this isn't a stiff. This isn't a guy that can't move. He has all the upside in the world. He really does. And so the leading question, Sean, that people have asked on the board, and I just want to put this out in the universe for people that are going to ask this because it's going to be asked. If Owen Strebig picks Notre Dame, which is, again, it's trending that direction, that Notre Dame will be the pick potentially. At least Notre Dame feels good about where they are. Does that affect anything with Jack Lang and Matty Augustine? And for people that don't know, Jack Lang, 2025 offensive tackle out of Eureka, Missouri. And Matty Augustine, of course, he's out of Connecticut. He goes to the same high school as Ethan Long, who is the safety commit in the 2025 class to Notre Dame. Does that affect either one of those guys? I want us to say this all together, Sean. Say it all together. No, it does not. Notre Dame loves Ethan Long. They really like Matty Augustine. I believe that even if they are able to get Owen Strebig in the class, they'll have Owen Strebig and Will Black. They will push for both those young men.
As they should.
As they should. Yes.
Look, you go get the talented players and you figure out the rest once you get them in the room, right? And you talk to these young men, and what have we talked about? That it's been pretty linear with all the coaches on the recruiting trail. Honesty with these kids. Honesty. You can stack up the running back room with guys that can start. Well, you can stack up guys at tackle, guys at guard. You can tell guys, look, we're going to teach you and give you valuable assets. We're going to make you multi-positional players on the offensive line. Charles Jaggersaw knows how to play guard. He spent the entire season playing guard. Switched to practice. He's tackle in the practices for the bowl prep, and now he's playing tackle. He can play both positions. He had that. That's value. That's value, right? Because once he gets evaluated for the NFL, they're going to see, this kid played freshman year guard, transition to tackle. Heck, if he comes in and somebody beats him out at left tackle and they say, we'll put Charles at right tackle. Okay, now that's the versatility. And that is really the position of offensive line. There are not a lot of people that just come in and flat out, I'm a left tackle. I'm a star left tackle from the jump. Right. It's not too many Joe Alts in the world, ladies and gentlemen. That's why you honor that young man for who he was at Notre Dame. That's an anomaly.
Yep.
That's an anomaly.
I think it's really well said. It makes him obviously a lot more valuable. And I think that's the great part about this too, Sean. So let's say hypothetically, someone asked this on the board, and I think it's a great question. What if Notre Dame ends up with Will Black, Owen Strebig, Jack Lang, and Matty Augustine in this hypothetical? Let's say they land all four. The natural question is, aren't they all four offensive tackles? And my response would be, yeah, but also Will Black could play inside a guard. Matty Augustine could play inside a guard. I wouldn't want to move Owen Strebig inside a guard because he's 6'8". Like, he's a tall dude. But you have a couple options that could ideally fit together is the big part of this, right? And I had someone else say, like, oh, isn't 6'6" or 6'7" kind of tall for guard? And it's like, yes, but if they play with good pad level and have good sync of their hips, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. It matters how low you play, not how tall you are. If you're going to play a guard, there are some good guards in the NFL that are 6'6" plus. There are. There's plenty of them because they can play with bend in their hips and play lower than the man, or as low as the man across from them, I should say. So having that type of upside and the ability. And I will say this, Sean, we talked about this in the 2023 class. I really loved the 2023 class with Charles, with Sullivan, with Sam, but there were a lot of guys that maybe are more guards than they are tackles, right? Yeah. And I think over the last two cycles, 2024 and 2025, you need to start landing more tackle body types, man, because there's not a lot of depth at tackle right now. There's a lot of talent at tackle, but getting more and more talented players to add to the depth, I think is big time for that potentially.
And I think what people might be asking is, the perception here is, wow, we lose Joe Alt, but we get the promise of a freshman, a true freshman in Charles Jaggersaw. I tried to say it the right way. So the perception is, that's the way we should have it. Like, we lose our guy, the upperclassman, and we got a young guy coming in that's ready. When truth of the matter is, wouldn't you rather have a guy that's 2 years into the program taking over?
Yes.
From an experience standpoint, because we still have tremendous questions because, like you said, DJ's only played one college game, and he only had a month worth of practices at the position after playing guard. So now the spring is going to be very important for him in his transition to the tackle position. And the most important tackle position, especially with Riley Leonard being the transfer quarterback. So, look, getting these tackle types, what it does is it ensures flexibility within your room. That's what they're trying to do with the wide receiver room. Like, you have to have flexibility. They have flexibility in the running back room. They have flexibility at the linebacker position. They have more flexibility along the defensive line. Depth, flexibility. That's what you want within your football program. And if they get all of those young men to commit to Notre Dame in the 25 class, and the body types of tackle, they have 4 guys that can play tackle. They have 2 to 3 that can probably go inside and work inside. And even if they're working inside, whether it's transfers, injuries, or departing to the NFL, they have guys that can now go back to tackle, even though they played and trained inside. The same path that Charles Jagusah took. So
100%.
Yeah.
And Charles is also a 6'7" guy that they were willing to play at guard because you know why? He can play low and he can play with leverage.
Good.
He understands how to
He's
use his
good.
hands. Yes.
His wrestling background helped with that.
Oh, 100%. Well, why do you play so low, Charles? Why do you use your hands? Because I wrestled. I hand fought for a living for a little bit there, right? Like, that's what I did. So absolutely, man. And so that's the big news. Obviously, again, we will have coverage for it this upcoming Thursday, February 8th, when Owen Strebig chooses between Notre Dame, USC, Florida State, Miami, and Wisconsin. I always almost forget Florida State, Sean, because I just haven't heard their name associated with him very much, but they're in his finalists. So there we are, right? So make sure to tune in, irishbreakdown.com. We will have coverage for that pending decision for Owen Strebig. A couple other news that we want to hit on real quick before we get into the bulk of our show, which is going to be talking about the priority board in 2025 offensively, talking about a little bit of a hot board situation here. There were 2 offers that were extended this week, Sean, because people that don't know, we're still in an open period, which means Notre Dame coaches are on the road visiting schools of some prospective 2025 and 2026 players. 2 offers that were let out this week or extended this week. I don't want to spend too much on one. We're going to spend more on the other. Okay. 2027 Huber Heights, Ohio, Wayne High School athlete. I think he was offered as a corner. Jameer Brown was offered by Notre Dame, Sean. Now, real quick note on this one. Jameer, 5'11", 160 pounds. He's been offered by some schools. He has like a Penn State offer and a couple other ones. Notre Dame obviously including that one now. Some have offered him as wide receiver. Other offered him as defensive back. I think 1 or 2 have offered him as an athlete as well. Like, he's a 2027 kid, Sean. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Freshman.
He's a freshman in high school. So we're going to be talking about this kid for years. Years. But anyway, obviously a very impressive player. I put on some of his film yesterday when he was offered, and kid's talented, man. Really fast, explosive. He sure is a good player. So
4.3, according to reports.
He lists a 4.31. I'll believe that when I see it, because 4.31 for a freshman in high school is pretty nutty. Like, that's pretty insane. I would like to see it. I would like to see it in person. But regardless, the kid is very fast. There's no doubt about it. And a quick note, Sean, Huber Heights, Ohio, Wayne, so Wayne High School, is the home of Marcus Freeman and Mike Mickens. So
no wonder they got somebody hit them up like, hey, we got this freshman.
We got a guy, man. We got a guy.
I was wondering, I'm like, yo, did they get bored? Like, did they go see everybody they need to see? Like, we finished that. Let's go check this kid out.
So believe it or not, Sean, I haven't looked into many 2027 kids yet. Believe it or not, haven't really looked into them much. So when the offer was extended, at first I was like, I need to make sure that that's a real offer. That was my immediate thing, because I'm just like, unfortunately, we are in the day and age of social media where some kids do fake offers at times. They do. They sometimes do. So I needed to go and check out and be like, I needed to do my research and talk to the kid and do all that type of stuff. And it is a real offer, obviously. It is legitimate. He's got a Penn State offer. Schools like Ohio State and such are trying to get him to visit campus this offseason, the camp and all that type of stuff. So legitimate offer for Mr. Brown there, Jameer Brown, out of Wayne High School in the state of Ohio, Huber Heights, Ohio. Let's talk, though, Sean. 2025 kid that was offered this past week, okay? a kid that that I broke down on the message board. We've done a couple breakdowns recently on the message board, but I broke down Greater Latrobe, Pennsylvania high school linebacker Alex Tatch is how you pronounce it. Tatch. 6'2", 210 pounds. I'm going to pull up the offer list, Sean, because he has a legitimately impressive offer list. And he is rated as, let me just pull it up real quick so I don't misquote some of the offers that he has. Because I know he has a Penn State offer, obviously him being a Pennsylvania kid, that's going to hold a lot of weight. So we'll talk about it, right? So, Sean, he is rated by Rivals against Alex Tatch, 6'2", 210-pound, 2025 linebacker out of Greater Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Number 220 overall player, 4-star recruit by Rivals. Number 18 linebacker in the 2025 class. Also rated on the On3 industry ranking as a 4-star as well, Sean. So he's pretty well liked on the recruiting side. Two sites, 247 and Rival ESPN have also not ranked him yet. So those rankings will eventually come in, and I'm sure he'll rise a little bit potentially in the class. So, Sean, as of today, Mr. Tatch holds offers from Notre Dame, Penn State, Wisconsin, West Virginia, Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Stanford, Cincinnati, Boston College, Duke, Maryland, South Carolina, USC, Kentucky, Syracuse, and Michigan State. Those are the Power 5 offers he holds. So obviously a really impressive offer list, Sean. Now, did you get a chance to check the kid out? Because I know we were texting about him a lot. So
yes.
People at BoardsAverage.com, they've already heard my opinion on this player. We'll dive deeper into that. But let me hear the Sean Davis scouting breakdown on Alex Tatch.
Great instinctive linebacker that fills a need that Notre Dame fans have been asking to see at the linebacker position for years, which is, when are we going to get guys that can play well in space at the linebacker position, that can tackle in space, run in space? Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Tatch fills that void. Plays everywhere, blitzes off the edge. You can put him on the inside. He's going to gain weight. As you said, he's about 210 right now. This kid is absolutely fantastic. And once again, kudos to whomever put his film together. That they showed every aspect of his game the way they put that film together. But this kid is absolutely fantastic. Like you said, getting him out of the state of Pennsylvania is going to be a task. He has a Penn State offer, but if Al Golden and Max Bullough can work some magic and get this young man, Notre Dame is getting a young man that is definitely going to be a chess piece at that linebacker position. I wouldn't exactly say athletically that he is Jalen Smith or like super elite. No. Extremely athletic, versatile, and when he gets to the ball, he closes fast. That's what I love.
Yeah.
He closes fast to the ball carrier.
So he has a pretty long frame, 6'2", 6'3", pretty long arms. Like you said, he's 210 pounds. He plays in a 3-4 defense that uses him as kind of he plays outside linebacker in a 3-4, but like they don't really sub out of it, Sean, right? Because it's a high school team.
Mm-hmm.
They move him into space a ton. So like when they're facing against spread teams, they stick in their 3-4 and they just put him outside, because you know why? Because he looks like a big safety right now. That's what he looks like. My comparison for him on the board, Sean, don't know if you heard this one. Pete Werner is who he reminds me of coming out of high school. That's who he reminds me of. He looks like a linebacker. He plays out in space a ton. And then when Pete got to Ohio State, he started as an overhang, their rover at Ohio State, and eventually moved into will. That's what, as his body continued to develop. That's what Alex Tatch looks like to me. That kid is super smooth in space, man. Hips are great. And Max Preps, shame on you. You shortchanged my guy a bunch of stats this year, Sean. 111 tackles. He had 9 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 4 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, had over 500 yards rushing, over 6 yards a carry as a running back, 7 touchdowns, and also had over 100 yards receiving in a limited role on offense. So this kid is versatile, man. Where would he fit? I would personally, Sean, if his body stayed what it is today, and we were at National Signing Day and he was going to early enrollee, whatever, right? if he ended up picking Notre Dame, I would start him at Rover and then let his body develop. And if he moves inside, then he's a will, and he's a playmaking will. But you're absolutely right. This is a modern day linebacker. This is a
Yes.
kid that doesn't have to get subbed a ton defensively to bring in better pass coverage players all the time. This kid can play in space. Honestly, if he just stayed the same size he is now, right around 210 pounds, and didn't gain any weight, he could probably play safety if he felt like it. Like, this is a really gifted player in space. I really like Alex Tatch a lot. I had an interview with him last night, and it ran this morning, Sean. You said, we'll see if Notre Dame has a chance here. I'm telling you right now, they will have a chance. Is Penn State probably the early favorite? Sure. They've been on him a little bit longer. He's a Pennsylvania kid. Sure. Direct quote from him. I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the exact quote in front of me, Sean. He said, Notre Dame has a team I've loved since I was a kid. So he has a high opinion of Notre Dame. He is also working on visiting at Notre Dame. He said he didn't have an exact date, but he said he is going to make it up to South Bend. There's no doubt. So the two big hurdles there. One, he already really liked Notre Dame, a team that he'd been wanting to hear from for a long time, and he's already setting up a visit. That's happening quickly here. Yeah. So yes, I think Notre Dame will have a chance there if they push for Alex Tatch. And I will tell you this right now. He's ranked around number 200 in the class as far as a ranking or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I would take that kid today. Would not hesitate. And we had a question on, if he wanted to commit today, would Notre Dame take him? I'm not 100% sure about that, guys. I'm going to bring that up now, Michael, instead of the mailbag because it's pertinent to now. But Michael said, Ryan, if Tatch wanted to commit to Notre Dame, is he a take now? I know I'd take him. I would also take him, Michael. Is he a take for Notre Dame today, right this second? I have no idea. It's way too early, right? Because they're going to get him up to campus. We'll see, body type checks out. Other coaches like him. You'll see what the rest of the board, as far as like how they feel about certain guys like Anthony Sacca, for instance, who would play a similar role. How do they feel? But if Notre Dame pushes there, I think that they will have a chance in the end. I think they will have a chance in the end. And if he ended up in the class, Sean, I'd be very happy. This kid is good.
This is how Notre Dame, let me make this point, Brian. This is how Notre Dame has changed things in the span of a year and a half to 2 years in recruitment. Remember the discussions we used to have about kids that they will offer a year and a half, 2 years ago? Like, nah, I just don't. Certain kids would be like, no.
And it still happens occasionally, but less frequently now. Yes, you're.
But my point is, the majority of the time, even the kids that aren't the top kids at that position, we might prefer other kids. But even if we prefer the other kids, we're like, oh yeah, we would still take this kid.
Yep,
it has literally changed. Yep. It has literally changed, right? And so whether we're talking about what you just spoke about with the offensive line, like, and getting all of those guys in, now linebacker, the wide receiver offers we've been talking about, which we echoed last week. Like, I wouldn't be mad if they took any one of these kids in the class. That just shows you how they've elevated the evaluation at Notre Dame. We've already seen the evidence of it at the quarterback position. And so that's something to look at from a recruiting standpoint and say, yo, that's different. And it ties directly into that momentum, ties directly into what we saw with Chad Bowden staying. Like, yo, this is important to keep this momentum in recruiting.
Yep.
It is pertinent that we keep this guy and make sure we have him along with Marcus Freeman. It is paying dividends, and you can see the changes that have been made in recruiting. And hopefully we start to see the evidence pay off on the field in years to come. But
yeah,
it's a joy for us, Brian, because we get to watch kids that are like, yo, where'd this kid come from? Like, this kid is good.
Right.
Like, it's like, remember when we talked about, like, we love doing our job, but we would much rather write stories about good things.
Yep.
And every offer that comes out now, it's just like good viewing. Like, okay, I didn't waste 10 minutes there. That was a good 10 minutes that I enjoyed.
Sean, can I send a shout out too? Because we know, and we'll talk about it, I think, because we talked about it on the show last week, but there's rumors flying around about, is Al Golden interviewing for jobs? And we know that obviously there's other stuff happening that's kind of preventing him from being as active on the road and such right now. It has nothing to do with him looking for extra jobs or whatever. But the two linebacker offers that were extended over the past week, a little over a week, Sean, we're talking about, and I think it's a fun conversation to have because obviously Al Golden's a part of these conversations. Marcus Freeman's a part of these conversations. Chad Bowden's a part of these conversations as far as like giving a green light to offer potential players. But who has offered the last two linebackers on the board, Sean? Who's extended those offers specifically? It's been Max Bullough, baby.
Max Bullough.
It's been Max Bullough. Yep. Max Bullough has extended offers to both Alex Tatch and Antoine Delorier, who we liked a ton out of the Georgia area, formerly of Canada. So I like the linebackers to add to the board. I would tell you this, and I think some people are going to push back against this, Sean. Some people would not like this, and it's fine. But if you told me you can only take 3 linebackers in the class, you already have Josiah Kia in the class as well. And if you told me that they took Alex Tatch and Antoine Delorier, I'd be completely fine, dude. Like, I would not say a word about it. I would be good to go. Both those kids are very talented, man. So I like the linebackers to add into the board. The long and short of it is, I think 2025, there's questions of what the linebacker class is going to look like. But if either one of the 2 kids that have been offered recently by Max Bullough end up picking Notre Dame, cool. I'm good to go.
Even though he doesn't have the official position of coach,
right?
Ladies and gentlemen, from the time that he took the position at Notre Dame as grad assistant, he has been entrusted. We reported watching practices, Drake Bourne and Jaden Osbury were pretty much turned over to Max Bullough. So there's tremendous trust from the staff, including Al Golden and Max. And for him to be out here on the road and giving the offers, that means he's heavily involved with the evaluation. He's heavily involved with the development of these young linebackers.
Yes.
I'm glad he's here. I'm glad we snatched him from Alabama.
I'm glad he's here too, man. I was really impressed with the job he did in year 1 as far as helping the on the field, and he's been a very good asset on the recruiting trail as well. I mean, like, he's really done a great job of, because he was a part. Sean, I think in the end, everybody had a key part in Kingston Viliamoasa picking Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman mostly, as far as like the impact down the stretch. But boy, Max Bullough was involved in that too, man. Like, he talked ball with that dude constantly. And I think that helped things tremendously because they know, Sean, even if he doesn't have the direct title of linebacker coach on the staff, right? They know who's helping to develop them. He's a part of that process. Him, Al Golden, and the rest of the defensive staff. So love the recent offers. Alex Tatch, obviously included in that. We'll see when he gets on campus for Notre Dame in the 2025 class. But regardless, pretty good recent trend of linebacker offers in the 2025 recruiting class. Folks, that's the recent updates in the recruiting world. We're going to get into some offensive talk from the 2025 class here in a minute. We're going to talk about who's left on the board, where things are, what are the needs, what are the decisions that need to be made. There's a lot that we're going to get into next. This is going to be a great conversation of offensive hot board in the 2025 class. Before we do, though, please, if you like the content so far, hit that like button for us. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and you hit that notification bell as well. We're going to have a slightly new schedule coming up over the next couple weeks as far as me and Sean will be staying intact for the most part, but we might have to do a recruiting show on Monday next week. We'll let you all know. Also, my schedule as far as what podcasts I'm on, and I'll be on IB Nation Sports Talk at times as well. That's going to change moving forward as well, and we'll keep everyone updated, obviously, on the boards at boards.ourspreakout.com, but hit the notification bell. You don't have to be aware. You'll know when the next show is coming up. And like I said, boards.irishbreakdown.com for all the recent recruiting and team intel. We'll be back here in a second here on the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Sean, 2025 offensive recruiting. Let's get into the conversation, okay? So Notre Dame's off to a good start in several key areas. Obviously, Deuce Knight, 2025 quarterback out of the state of Mississippi, is committed in the class. You have two running backs, and Daniel Anderson and Justin Thurman committed in the class. You also have a tight end in James Flanagan out of Wisconsin, of course, the son of former Notre Dame great Jim Flanagan Jr. You also have Will Black in the class at offensive tackle. So let's talk, Sean, position by position, where things are currently, who are the players that you should know, and also what are the remaining question marks that need to be answered at several different positions. So quarterback, you're done. You don't need another quarterback in the 2025 class. Deuce Knight is the guy, obviously. You have two running backs in the class too. Notre Dame is still recruiting guys like James Simon, for instance, but as of today, you could end the class right now, and Notre Dame is good at running back. You're good. You could also be good at tight ends. You could just take James Flanagan in 2025 and you're good. I do think Notre Dame's taking looks at guys. They were just, Mike Denbrock was just out to see Lincoln Cure out of the state of Kansas, Goodland, Kansas this past week, a very high level tight end in the 2025 group. So there's some interest there, Sean, but we're going to spend more time on the needs per se on this podcast. And let's start wide receiver. Sean, did you see, have you seen 2025 Bishop Gorman wide receiver Derek Meadows out of Las Vegas? Did you see his performance at Battle Miami last week? Did you see that, man? Pretty good.
If anybody missed it, I don't think I've heard anybody that covers or covered that event that had anything negative to say about that kid. He definitely was one of the biggest standouts from that event down in Miami. And the news from a recruiting standpoint, as far as how he feels about Notre Dame. And this is what I've gathered. And I want to get your opinion on this because we talk about this offensively. Mike Brown must make a hell of a first impression. When we talk to these kids that are wide receivers, his first impression must be darn good.
Yeah.
Must be darn good. Because we're talking about some of these receivers that have kind of had their love for Notre Dame reignited because Notre Dame started recruiting them with the previous coach.
Sure.
And usually there's, a leveling off or even a decline when that happens. Mike Brown has, contacted some of these kids that were previously recruited by the other coach, and all of a sudden Notre Dame is, that fire is bright, burning hot once again. And it leads me to believe, the first impression from Mike Brown, even the carryover, right? Because Tayvion Taylor, for example, carryover relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Tayvion Taylor goes to junior day, the way he's talking now, after hitting up junior day and seeing Mike Brown at Notre Dame, it just makes you feel like that you have a wide receiver coach, whether it's guys that are currently on the roster and the way they performed in the Sun Bowl after we saw them perform all year.
Yep.
He has to have something about him that immediately draws respect from young men and makes young men want to play for him. And maybe I'm looking into it a little bit too deep, but
I don't think you are.
It's very, very promising for this offensive class, especially at the wide receiver position.
Yeah. Now, I think that there's a lot of great early relationships, and I think that those are, in some cases, pre-existing relationships. Like you mentioned Tayvion Taylor, and we'll talk about Mr. Taylor here in a couple minutes, Sean, because he's a player that is still a priority for Notre Dame in the 2025 class. I wanted to start it out with Derek Meadows, though, because going into that Battle Miami, right, this is kind of where it's been. Notre Dame, Washington were kind of duking it out for Derek Meadows, who was going to be the team in the end. And when the coaching change happened and Kalen DeBoer left for Alabama, Notre Dame it was the assumed leader at that point. And I know there was even some crystal balls that were thrown in about Derek Meadows, and I don't disagree. I think that Notre Dame was in prime position to land Derek Meadows because they were top two, and then one of them dropped out basically. And Notre Dame had a chance, obviously, or still has a very good chance. I mean, I still think they're the leader, but Sean, Battle Miami is going to make things a little bit more difficult. Because what are we seeing coming out of it?
Offers.
A lot of schools are offering, man.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Alabama, some other SEC schools. Apparently, he's going to take a visit to Tennessee, which is a school that he has some interest in, right? So there is some legitimate interest for Derek Meadows, which it was only a matter of time. I mean, you don't make 6'5", 6'6" that can run like that. Like you just don't make too many of those guys on the planet Earth. Like it just doesn't exist too often. So Notre Dame's in a good position, Sean, but they got to be ready to battle, man. This is going to be a big test for Mike Brown because you just said something. Mike Brown does a good job making good relationships, and I talked to Derek Meadows over the last couple of weeks, and he has a lot of great things to say about Mike Brown.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, Notre Dame is going to have to fend off and really fight to be the number one team for Derek Meadows moving forward because there is going to be a whole lot of competition moving forward.
Like I said, they're in great position. I would have probably said that Washington might have had a slight lead, if not even with Notre Dame.
You could have convinced me either way. Like one day you could have said Washington, I'd be like, yeah, Notre Dame. Other days, like, yeah, they were jockeying for number one. There's no doubt about it.
And when you watch that, I give them the advantage because Derek Meadows can look and say, yo, I can see myself at Roman Odunze in that offense. Like he had guys going to the NFL this year that he could say, yo, I can see myself in that offense. And that probably would have been part of the pitch. Now, you know, all things kind of changed. Notre Dame is right there because of the work they put in previously. Now they have an advantage and they should take advantage of that.
Yeah.
They have the advantage and they should be able to take advantage of that. But dude, this 25 class is going to be about work, right? Hey, big time people still on the board. And most of those kids, you're going to have to work. I think we said it, the wide receiver position for the best wide receivers, it's rare that top wide receivers commit early.
Yep.
Like wide receivers, the top, 10 receivers usually go to a couple of them might commit early, but usually those guys go down to the end. Like even up to the fall.
Well, I think wide receivers like the publicity a little bit. They like the recruiting process a little bit more than some. Like they do tend to wait a little bit. I mean, there was a wide receiver in this last year's class, Sean, that was a pretty like highly recruited player that I know for a fact ended up at a school just because he waited too long and there weren't spots left at other schools. You know what I mean? Like that happens, man. It really does. So yeah, they tend to wait a little bit, which is why I think they're still waiting on the first wide receiver to commit in the 2025 class. But Derek Meadows is a priority player for Notre Dame. He has been for some time. Even before the coaching change happened, Notre Dame valued him quite heavily in the talent he has. Another guy that they've been very high on for a long time, and you already mentioned him, is Geneva, Illinois community wide receiver Tayvion Taylor, who Mr. Taylor, 6'1", 175 pounds, a potential elite wide receiver in the 2025 class. He's a legit top 50-ish type of wide receiver in the class. And things were kind of, I would call it stagnant for a little bit, Sean. Like I think Notre Dame was in a solid to good spot, but I would say there's a couple other schools that were in a solid to good spot as well. I just don't really think there was a early hierarchy of schools for Taylor. Like I think it was more, you know, Ohio State offer, they're going to be in the conversation. He liked Michigan a little bit. Georgia was a school he kind of liked, but it wasn't like a, you know, Notre Dame is the absolute leader. Georgia's the absolute leader. Michigan's the absolute leader. Like there's a bunch of teams that are jockeying at the top for Tayvion Taylor, right? And so you were waiting for him to get back on campus. He's been on campus 4 times already, including most recently during that ice storm, man. Right. Got back for junior day, which I think is a great sign because we reported a big reason that he made that trip was because of Mike Brown. Like Mike Brown just stay persistent with it. Like, I just really want you to get down here, take a look, talk to me, like do all that type of stuff. And he made the trip, Sean. He made the trip, which obviously tells you that there's some high level of interest there for Tayvion Taylor.
Oh, absolutely. And I think in this battle, I think his mother is very pivotal in his recruiting. And she wasn't able to make the trip because she was attending a wedding that weekend. So he came without his mother, and she usually accompanies him to most of his visits. And she talked about how excited he was coming out of the trip and how he enjoyed his time with Mike Brown. So, mothers tend to love Notre Dame. That is something that we picked up as well. Mothers tend to love Notre Dame. And in this situation, I think we know the contenders for this young man. This type of receiver, once again, he can go anywhere. But he has his pick of lay of the land. Wherever he wants to go play football, he can go play. It's going to come down to Notre Dame and Mike Brown being able to put in the work. With this young man, I'm going to say, watch this spring and early summer. If he gets to Notre Dame for a spring practice, if he comes back for a blue and gold game, that's going to start to be the telltale for this young man, right?
Yep, agree.
And the fact that he, once again, heeded the word of Mike Brown. It was terrible up here. I know it was terrible with the ice storm in South Bend, and it wasn't too good up here in the Chicagoland area.
No.
So,
and
Owen
Sean, he had to
Strebig,
travel back. He had to. So Taylor he drove up Saturday because the family had a wedding, and then had to drive back that night to get to the reception on time as well. So he braved the elements to make that trip. There's no doubt about it, man.
Absolutely. So when you talk about that, pick up on that's meaningful. That lets you know we're not saying that Notre Dame is the leader for this young man or they're second. Or what we're saying is Notre Dame, you give your time, energy, and love to the things that are important to you. Something like that shows that Notre Dame is pretty important to him at this stage in recruiting because he gave Notre Dame his time on a day where he didn't have that much time, the energy of making the trip, and his appreciation for Mike Brown, which came across after the trip. So that bodes well. That bodes well.
So another couple of wide receivers that I would just keep a closer eye on that it seems that the Notre Dame staff is in favor for, because again, Tayvion Taylor is not going to commit until after official visits this offseason. That is going to be a stop. I think he told me July was kind of the time that he wanted to make a commitment. So it was in July after officials and, kind of letting the schools make their final pitch and him to do a little bit of his soul searching. So that'll kind of be the timeline. Other two wide receivers, Sean, that Notre Dame's in good position for, I would say they're in a warm category if we're talking about a hot board specifically. One is Bettis Jr., who wide receiver out of the state of Georgia, goes to Woodward Academy in Atlanta, Georgia, son of Notre Dame Hall of Famer, running back Bettis, who there's been a lot of back and forth about Bettis Jr., Sean, and I completely get it. Because I really want him to take a big jump as a senior, because as of right now, it's still hard to see, right? It's still a little bit hard to see. You're trying to bet on the genes a little bit there. So hopefully he's able to take a big step as a senior. But regardless, Notre Dame has been consistent with pushing for Bettis Jr. for some time now. They have been the leader for a long time. For whatever reason, there's a little bit of a holdup of making a commitment. I think Notre Dame will be the pick. I think Notre Dame would be the pick today. But ultimately, you have to, I guess, close here on Bettis Jr. because there isn't a decision date that has been finalized or anything like that. Notre Dame is certainly the leader, but will it end at some point, I guess, is the question. Or when will it end? Eventually.
Sorry about that. We can evaluate, we can talk about his film, but ultimately, all of these young men, whether 5-4 stars, Ryan Roberts gives his opinion, Sean Davis gives his opinion, the future of these young men are in their hands and the work they're willing to put in. He has some talent. Is that talent going to grow? Is this senior film going to show that he's taking a step? I will say this. He seems to get along quite well and have the respect of the other guys in the class that have committed. Him and Elijah Burris ended up forming a bond and a relationship at the junior day. They might end up being teammates. So, there are some guys that we can look at over our time as a Notre Dame fan or our time working here at Irish Breakdown and say, you know what? I never saw a Jordan Faison coming. or I never saw a Chris Fink coming, or I never saw a Robbie Toma coming. There's a place at Notre Dame in college football for guys that, maybe you didn't see it initially, and then they get there and their value comes forth. I think Joe Wilkins was kind of on that path before his injuries at Notre Dame. Like, he was making plays as a true freshman. He wasn't exactly the most talented, most athletic wide receiver, but he just seemed to be making plays in practice and got into games and had some early touchdowns, and injuries just derailed his career. Yep. And so this is, with Jerome Bettis Jr., this might be a young man that we might watch, just take off at some point during his time in Notre Dame if he decides to come to Notre Dame. And we're honest. We're going to be honest. And there's no problem with that. There's no problem with that. We can be honest about the film right now, what we haven't seen. We were honest about Elijah Burris. Like, hey.
And we'll talk about him next. We'll talk about Elijah Burris next. Yep.
All of these measurables and the film, fantastic. Where's the production? It needs to add up. And so we're waiting for production in his senior season, right? Yep. And so we're waiting to see some things from Jerome Bettis Jr., in his senior season as well.
Yep. I think that I am very hopeful that he turns into, because Sean, we had a question about this, and we'll go a little bit more in depth about it in the mailbag. But I remember, it's a little bit of a different situation, but I remember when Bryce Young was offered, man, I was like, what the heck is this? What the heck is that? No, no, thank you. Full transparency. I watched it. I'm just like, dude, that's not a Notre Dame player. It's not a Notre Dame player. But then 2 years later, not only is he a Notre Dame player, he's a top 50 player and borderline 5-star in the 2024 class. Like, players get better, players develop, players evolve. That stuff happens, right? So patience. Because Notre Dame obviously sees something in Jerome Bettis Jr. outside of his last name. Because I know people are going to say, if his name was this, blah, 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 blah. Look, they're betting on traits. They're betting on athletic gifts, hopefully being able to be developed in the family, right? So yes, we'll see what happens with Jerome Bettis Jr., but obviously Notre Dame is still the leader, and Notre Dame's still the team to beat for them moving forward. Last wide receiver, you already mentioned him, Sean. Elijah Burris, who is a wide receiver out of New Jersey, goes to DePaul Catholic here in North Jersey. Listed 6 foot, 175 pounds. Of course, he is the son of former New York Giants wide receiver Plexico Burris, who was a great player at Michigan State, then went on to an NFL career. Like I said, he was a Pro Bowl caliber player for the New York Giants, and then eventually, I think, finished out with the Pittsburgh Steelers, if I remember correctly. So there's probably a relationship there between Bettis and Burris. Elijah Burris has been a very interesting player because his offer list and ranking is nothing that will impress you much. And his fit and his production last year wasn't great either. I mean, he had 400 something yards last year. I mean, he averaged a healthy yards per catch for DePaul Catholic, a school that plays a lot of prominent schools here in New Jersey. He's playing against the Bergen Catholics of the world. He's going against, some of the St. Peter's and some of the really good schools here in North Jersey. But production was not great. He was a second leading receiver on the team. But then you pop on the film and you see a lot of things you like about him. I mean, he is a really good route runner, attention to detail. I think he's pretty explosive, pretty quick. I think the long speed is solid to good. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a long speed dynamo. Like, he's not a guy that I think is going to consistently take the top off all the time as a vertical outside threat, but he has solid to good speed. Very different player than his dad, by the way. People remember Plexico Burris. Plexico Burris was a 6'5", just monster outside receiver that won with length and physicality. And, David, we're not even talking about what you're talking about, sir, in the chat. I have no idea where that post even came from. It's wild. And I disagree with that sentiment, by the way, but we'll talk about that in the mailbag if you would like. I don't know. We'll talk about that. Steelers drafted Plexico, did they? Okay. Sorry, Anthony. I didn't mean to put any bad information out there. I do not remember them drafting him. But anyway, regardless, He is a player that brings a lot of tangible traits to the table that are exciting. Obviously, like we just talked about with Jerome Bettis Jr., he has the NFL bloodlines. He has the gene pool to pull from, which you hope that he takes another big step as a senior. I do believe that he is a player that has upside that he can bring to the table and has projection that he can potentially bring to the table. Now, Sean, he visited for junior day as well, Elijah Burris, and coming out, feel really good about where Notre Dame is. And it seems, at least on the outside, I would think that he might be a player that Notre Dame is potentially going to push for in the class. And we shall see if that ends up happening. But regardless, Notre Dame seems to like Elijah Burris, and there seems to see some reciprocated interest there. So Notre Dame is definitely a threat to end up with Elijah Burris eventually.
Once again, the only thing we're waiting to see is the production, right? That's it. Like film, we understand why Mike Brown made the offer. We understand why Notre Dame made the offer. If the production lines up and elevates next season, Notre Dame can end up getting a steal in Elijah Burris in the 25 class at the wide receiver position. And like you said, once again, seems like a great first impression. Another young kid that speaks highly of Mike Brown. And, seems like he's feeling pretty good about his relationship with Notre Dame at this point in his recruiting. But this is I wonder how these conversations go with all of these new offers and limited spots. How do these conversations go, right? Because we're talking about Notre Dame as a staff being honest. So if they're having honest conversations, are they saying, we love your film, we love your tape, like we really want to see you, start to produce on the field next year, but we really love you. We'd like to have you here, but I want you to work on this, work on that, maybe come back for the Irish invasion, do this, do that. And then, with Derek Meadows, it's like, tomorrow, when are you ready to come? Like we can start building your locker like right now, right? When do you want to come? It's like, do you think there are differing conversations that are going on with these new offers? Is Lex Cyrus a more aggressive offer? Is Lex Cyrus a different type of conversation, more along the lines of, dude, we want you because we know Penn State is on you. We know Penn State is heavily on you. And Penn State has been known to get the best wide receivers out of Pennsylvania historically. I'm very interested in what type of conversations are happening because people are sitting here asking us, where would you rank them? What would be your preference? I'm very interested in what the preferences are within the Notre Dame offensive staff and how those conversations are ongoing, because I think it's going to be very impactful on how we see things play out, especially with these upcoming visits in the spring and going into the summer.
Oh man, I'm about to block Tommy in the chat, by the way, sir. Sean, I completely forgot about Plexico with the Steelers early in his career, man. What a terrible person I am. What an absolute terrible person. I remembered him when he was actually, really good with the Giants and not when he was solid to good in Pittsburgh. But otherwise, whatever. Anyway, that's the wide receiver board, though, right now. Look, there's going to be guys that figure into the conversation. Sean just mentioned Lex Cyrus. Can you get him up to campus? There's a couple other wide receivers that you would love to get. Quincy Porter maybe makes a return trip. I mean, there's a few guys that Notre Dame is going to be continuing to look for. But ultimately, what are the things that we know, Sean? The things that we know today are they are recruiting Derek Meadows hard. They're recruiting Tayvion Taylor hard. They like Elijah Burris. And they are going to continue to evaluate, or not evaluate. They're going to continue to push for Jerome Bettis Jr. as well. That's exactly what we're at right now with wide receiver. Now let's go to, because we're going to skip tight end. We'll see if Notre Dame pushes for Lincoln Cure or not, or another tight end on the board, maybe Nicholas Townsend. We will see. That is to be determined. We do know, though, that there are potentially 3 open spots on the offensive line. Now, we're not going to talk a lot about Owen Strebig because we talked about it earlier in the show. In the first section, we talked a long time about Owen Strebig. Let's talk about two other offensive linemen, Sean. Jack Lang out of Eureka, Missouri, 6'8", 275 pounds. Fast rising offensive lineman in the class, Sean. He's gotten a lot of interest, especially after his junior season, because he had a huge year, absolute huge year. And his body filled out a lot comparative to sophomore year. Actually went back and watched some sophomore film. He got a lot bigger, a lot stronger, and his body continued to grow. He made his second trip to campus a couple weekends ago for the junior day. Sean, heading into that visit, I kind of put it like this. I think that there were obviously interest in Notre Dame. I think that Jack liked Notre Dame, but I think that they had been a little bit late to the table, so Notre Dame needed to make a huge impression during junior day. And they did. They did. Leaving that visit, I would call Notre Dame the leader for Jack Lang. They've visited him since the open period opened as well. You know, they've been out to Missouri to see Jack Lang and at his school. So, Sean, I would say it like this. As of moving forward, I think Notre Dame, as of today, things can always change, but as today, Notre Dame is the team to beat for Jack Lang, one of the more talented offensive linemen in the 2025 class.
I think Malik told me best. He said, you know, South Bend is only a place you can love if you experience it. And that's why getting these young men on campus is so vitally important, especially with this staff. So I wasn't shocked, you know, having conversations with you about Jack Lang, you know, leading into that junior day. But I'm not shocked that he fell in love not only with South Bend, Notre Dame, but more importantly, the offensive line culture. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most impressive things for kids that come to Notre Dame as offensive linemen on visits will always be the time they spend with other offensive linemen, whether it's commits, other recruits, or the time they get to spend with the actual players on the team, if they get a chance to do that. It is really something to behold, and stories come out of that. Even if kids decide to commit elsewhere, they will tell you about the weekend they got to spend moving pretty much as a herd throughout South Bend, and the love and appreciation that exists within that group that was established years ago that still resonates today. And so I'm not shocked at all that Jack Lang came, got that experience, and walked away saying, yo, it kind of exceeded my expectations.
Yeah. Because I feel like this, Sean, he came for a visit for the USC game. The USC game was the one that he was at. But he left there and he didn't get offered until 18 days after that. So I felt like, this is just my read on the situation. I felt like he really liked the campus, but then not getting offered during the visit, I think kind of tarnished it a little bit, you know, as far as like the overall experience. So, but I think that obviously they were able to rekindle that interest as soon as they offered him. They've shown him what Notre Dame football stands for, and getting down that visit with a offer officially on him and a priority player on the offensive line for 2025. Notre Dame is moving in a great direction. You need to keep the momentum, harness it, and finish this one out. But ultimately, you are, in my opinion, today, the team to beat for Jack Lang. Last offensive lineman that we'll talk about, because there are other guys on the board. I think we had a mailbag question I'll hit on briefly, but yes, they are still recruiting Josh Petty out of Georgia, for instance, for one. They went down to see him yesterday on Thursday. But we're talking about realistic options. We're talking about guys in a hot board situation where they're warm or they're hot to potentially get a player, right? Like so you feel good about where Notre Dame is. Just don't feel like that with Josh Petty. He's never been to campus. To your conversation about, you know, Malik kind of illustrating that like things change when you get on campus. And if you never get on campus, usually things don't go anywhere. That's usually where you are. Matty Augustine's the other one, Sean. He's been to campus multiple times. He was at junior day as well as the offensive tackle out of the state of Connecticut. The teammates of Ethan Long in the he's out of Brunswick School in Wallingford, Connecticut. Ethan Long committed in the class in the 2025 class at safety. Is his high school teammates. They play basketball together as well. Sean, this one kind of gives me a weird vibe to a degree. If you ask me today who I think the leader is for Matty Augustine, I would say Notre Dame. I would. But I still believe that Matty Augustine's kind of open to other schools right now. I think that he's listening, he's doing his homework, and although I would say probably the leader, I don't feel comfortable as of today saying they are the team to beat necessarily. You could be the leader and still not be the team to beat, if that makes sense, because that means when you're the team to beat, that you've made a significant gap, in my opinion. I think that they have a lead potentially, but it's not significant right now. I think that you have to battle for Matty Augustine. He's a guy that can't at Notre Dame. They loved him. They have made him consistently feel like a priority. He likes Notre Dame. But as of today, I would say very simply, you may have a slight lead, but you got to battle for Matty Augustine if you want to close that deal.
It is a situation that, just in life you find yourself in where, it seems like the simple decision, but there are contributing factors to that decision. And you want to make sure that you're making a decision for you rather than some of those external factors or contributing factors. And this might be a case where Matty Augustine is feeling that way. Like, I want to make sure that this is what I want to do and that this is the place for me. Because it's a lot of other factors that are pointing to, Notre Dame is the place, like your teammates there. Like, it's a lot of different factors that, make it seem like it's an easy decision. And I appreciate the young man taking his time and trying to make sure, I want to make sure this is the place that I really want to be. And in that, there's nothing wrong with that taking place. And like you said, Notre Dame still being in a strong position to land its services.
Yep. And I mean, like I said, I think that Notre Dame is certainly in a good spot. I just want to see them close this one out because I just don't think that it is a foregone conclusion as of right now. Like, I think there's a couple players that we've talked about, that we've hinted at over the last few weeks, Sean, that does Notre Dame still need to fight for them and to close things out? For sure. But we also, I think, have a general understanding that Notre Dame is the team to beat. There's no doubt about it. It's not a foregone conclusion per se, but they are the heavy, heavy, heavy favorite at this point. So that's the board, though. 3 offensive linemen you're in a good position for. You got to close. A few wide receivers that we hit on, like Tayvion Taylor, Derek Meadows, Elijah Burris, Jerome Bettis Jr. That's really where the offensive class sticks right now, Sean. Could they add another running back in James Simon? Possibly. Could they push for a second tight end? Potentially. Are there a couple other wide receivers that could be on the board ultimately that end up with Notre Dame? For sure. Like a 4-man class at wide receiver potentially could look in so many different ways. Like it really could be a lot of different combinations. So we'll see how that ends up. And next week, we'll do a defensive hot board and talk to you. And that one's going to be a little bit more extensive because linebacker, I have to talk about a lot of guys because it's kind of a jumbled mess right now, to be honest with y'all.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have clarity on defensive line, we have clarity on corner, we have clarity on safety, but the linebacker class specifically is one that we just need to continue to figure out. And thank you, David. Thank you for the obvious stuff. Oh my gosh. But that is the hot board offensively for the 2025 class. We're going to the mailbag next, folks. If you could please throw your mailbag questions in, MB before the question or mailbag before the question. Very much appreciate that. We're going to get into the mailbag, but before we do, please just hit that like button for me. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Hit that notification bell. And, of course, share it. But also go to boards.breakout.com and make sure that you all are signed up for the latest recruiting and team intel. And we'll catch you guys on the next section, mailbag, here on the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Sean, mailbag, you ready? We're going to do this, man.
Let's get it.
Do the thing. We're going to do the thing. All right, let's go. All right, Sean, I know we've seen both these players. So great first question from Brandon Plensner to our conversation on Alex Tatch earlier. What linebacker positions do you see new Notre Dame targets? Alex Tatch, he's the linebacker out of Pennsylvania. These are both 2025 kids, by the way. And Antoine Delorier playing at the next level. So where do we see Tatch playing? Where do we see Delorier playing? For me, Sean, I think we talked about with Tatch specifically, and tell me if you see him any differently. I think he could start as a rover, but I think long-term, he's probably a will on the next level because he has a frame to add a lot of weight.
I agree with that.
Antoine Delorier. Do you see him playing anything other than Mike? Like, I kind of think he can play Will, but like, I don't want him to play Will. I want him to be a downhill thumper playing Mike linebacker.
I think he can. I think he has enough flexibility to play both positions. But, eventually middle is where I think he ends up landing and having his best efforts if he comes in Notre Dame. And then it depends upon, because he can play in a 3-man front or a 4-man front. Like, right? Yeah. So if he's in 3-man front, he's definitely going to be an inside linebacker. But if you put him in the 4-man front, he's good enough and talented enough to either play the wheel or the middle.
What makes him such an interesting player is like he moves well. I mean, one, he's got really good speed for the position, but also he's got a pretty good feel in pass coverage too, Sean. Like he's not a stiff, playing middle. Like he can move. No. I personally want him in the middle though, because my guy is a wrecker on the inside, man. He breaks his pads with them all the time. I want him being the Mike linebacker and getting downhill and absolutely dismantling people personally. But
yeah, I agree.
Perspective. And Brandon, I would be surprised if Notre Dame saw it much different with Antoine, because he's just a super physical dude. I want him at Mike linebacker. And then the great thing about Alex Tatch is has a little bit of versatility to play a couple. Here's a claim, Sean. He's only 210 pounds. I want to hear if you agree or disagree with this. Although Alex Tatch is only 210 pounds, if he gets to like 235 though, I could see him being a playmaking Mike in today's, like, why couldn't he? I don't know. Just my thoughts.
Would you want to put that much weight on him though?
He's pretty long, so I wouldn't be surprised if he could get to 235 comfortably. I mean, like, I really think his body's like Pete Werner. I really do. And Pete Werner ended up being like 240 pounds when he was at Ohio State.
That's true. That's true.
But he still moved really well. And by the end, Pete Werner was playing a lot of Mike. Like he played a little between Mike and Will. Unfortunately, they had Tough Borland at that point. The only spot Tough Borland could play was Mike linebacker. Like he could not play Will at all. So I think if there was a different situation, he may have played a little bit more Mike than he did at Ohio State. But I certainly think he plays Mike linebacker today with the New Orleans Saints. He's the Mike, and because people don't know this, people see DeMario Davis and they're like, that dude was a monster, right? Like physical as heck. DeMario Davis is actually the Will in the Saints defense. Pete Werner's the Mike. Pete Werner is the Mike, and Davis plays a little bit more in pursuits. So, yeah, I would love that, though, as far as if Notre Dame got those two players to go with Josiah Kia, I'd be happy, folks. Like, I would be super happy if that ended up being the class.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was a funny comment from Salty Virginia Peanuts. Sean, who just said, Ryan, you've said that if things end soon, the Irish are in a very good position with Owen Strebig. Things end next Thursday. Do you think he's Irish? Salty, if I have to explain this to you at this point on your question, and I know it's a playful question, then I don't know how else I could spell it out any differently than where I'm coming from here, right? I know it's obviously a little bit of a joke, but yes, it's funny, Sean. I actually did a post on Owen. He was a part of a conversation on the board, or it was in an article. I can't remember, but I basically said, like, if things end soon, you love where Notre Dame is. And then that was before he had completely narrowed it down as far as like when his decision date was coming and all that type of stuff. So yeah, Salty, I think Notre Dame's in a great position to eventually close that one out on Thursday. So yeah. We had another one. Oh, actually, wait, let's go to somebody else first, and we'll come back to Salty. RJ Gerving says, mailbag, should the portal have a developmental fee whereby the receiving team must pay the sending team for each year they were on sending team roster to defray costs, etc.? Wow. That's
what costs?
I think they're saying that a team, so if a team is taking a transfer portal player, let's say they were a 3-year, let's do a hypothetical. Let's say a player is going from Ohio State to Michigan. That would never happen. But let's say, well, I guess never. But if a team's going from Ohio State to Michigan, Michigan would have to pay a fee dependent upon how many years he was at Ohio State. I guess it's trying to cut down on guys transferring as often or teams taking as many players. That's kind of how I see the question being framed. I don't know.
Let me answer this one first. No, I have no empathy for schools in this situation that have taken advantage of players for years. No.
Yep.
No, I have no empathy for schools losing players. Now, if you want to come up with something for non-Power 5 schools, that get rated every year, I still would say no, right? Because the Power 5 schools then go and raid. It's a downward flow. They go raid rosters below them, and ultimately the high school kids end up getting hurt because there's not enough scholarships, or not as many as it used to be. So
someone said in the chat, Sean, this is basically what it is. It's basically a buyout for players, right? It's almost, because the tough part is like, you need contracts then if we're talking buyouts, right?
That's the fault of the NCAA.
Yeah.
Scholarships are 1-year renewable contracts. That's your fault. You didn't want to commit to 4-year contracts. So you empowered schools to be able to move on from players whenever they saw fit. And it wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
So now the players have the opportunity to move on and take advantage of NIL or greener pastures or things of that nature. No. I mean, it is what it is. No. Does Notre Dame really need to receive compensation for the kids that have transferred?
The only part that I have empathy for, Sean, is that so there are some schools that are being rated by the transfer.
Absolutely.
So like a lower level, like let's say a G5 team, let's say James Madison, for instance. Like let's just say a James Madison. You remember Antoine Wells that transferred up to South Carolina, Juice Wells, and he's been the best receiver. I think he's back. He's still I think he transferred somewhere, but regardless, guy goes from James Madison to South Carolina, for instance, right? Antoine Wells is there for 3+ years. James Madison's the one that developed him. He wasn't a big name coming out of high school, and then they get rated. I guess in that scenario, is it fair to ask for like, hey, South Carolina, you got to give something back to James Madison there, man, because you basically just rated them improperly of getting one of their best receivers. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know. It's just talking out loud.
That's why I said, if you want to talk about a situation like that where a Power 5 school rates a non-Power 5 school, then, but there's a trickle-down effect. Should James Madison then pay compensation to the school that they raid to fill their roster?
Yeah, it's a messy slope, isn't it? It's a very messy slope.
It's really a messy slope. It really is.
Yeah.
And I see it's a great conversation in the chat. It really has nothing to do with there is no such thing as a 4-year scholarship with it. It's a 1-year renewable scholarship. Schools can tell you need to find somewhere else to go, which they have done. Period. So no, you're not getting any empathy from me, right? Because now it's only fair that the school and the players have equal rights to say, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go somewhere where I can take advantage of the opportunity in the classroom and on the field.
Yeah.
And that's it, man. It's tough, right? Life is fair, and at the same time, it's unfair. And it is a fair, unfair situation. The thing you pointed out with James Madison in South Carolina would be something, but the NCAA doesn't want to come to the table, Ryan. They don't.
They don't want to. You're right.
They want chaos, so everything can go back to the way it used to be, instead of just coming to the table and say, "Yo, let's figure this out and make this profitable and beneficial for everyone involved the best we can." They don't want that. They don't want that.
Yeah. Yep. It is a fascinating conversation, though. And I like where RJ's at least like he's thinking, right, which is a great thing. And
he's saying let's be fair.
Yes, he's trying to look out for the little guy that's getting poached. Is basically what he's looking for, right? It's just going to be so hard to find those restrictions that are proper, that are fair, right? In the end, it's going to be a lot. And until the NCAA actually makes precautionary measures to actually help people, then we're just kind of screaming at a cloud, right? Screaming into a cloud, whatever the heck that reference is. Like you're just, nothing's going to happen.
Now, I will say this: one way they could do that is by giving them a bigger cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give a bigger percentage since you raid their rosters every year. When they come play you, when a non-Power 5 school comes to play you, they should get a bigger cut of the gate.
Yep.
Now that's fair.
Sure.
Say like an NIL tax on every ticket, or name it however you want to name it, right? Yeah. But this is what's being set aside to help out the schools who get rated every year.
Sure.
You want to attach that to ticket prices?
Oh, man, that's such an interesting conversation. But unfortunately, we don't have the answers to it, man. I'm not sure we'll ever have the answers to it. Like, I'm not sure we'll ever get clarity on it, but I'll see. We had a super chat here, Sean. And if anybody wants to throw in a super chat, those go to the front of the line, just in case you haven't been here before. Tyler Evans with the super chat. Thank you so much, Tyler. Give me your top 3 players that will bust going into the NFL draft. So top 3 NFL draft prospects that are going to bust. That's a really interesting question. I don't like predicting bust them for NFL draft prospects, but 3 players that I'm wary of is how I will phrase this one a little better, Sean. 3 players I'm wary of compared to where they're being projected in the draft right now. Okay. So this is compared to where because that's really what bust happens with, right? Guys that ended up getting overdrafted that you look back and say, you know, they were probably just valued a little bit too heavily, and then they end up not being in a good situation to be successful. So for me, 3 guys. 1, Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver, who began his career at Georgia, ended up with Texas, Sean. I am terrified of Adonai Mitchell. They call him AD Mitchell. He's 6'4". He can run. He's got pretty good explosiveness in and out of breaks. Sean, I see the potential. I see it. But I'm here to tell you that AD Mitchell is probably going to go in the first round, and that would make me very scared because I think that he's kind of a one-trick pony as a football player right now. And I'm curious to see how the development happens because for all the talent that he has, Sean, a single game in his entire career, he had over 100 yards receiving. One single game. And I'm pretty sure he only had 2 games that he went over 75 yards receiving. At some point, you got to be productive, man. Why is this 6'4" kid that's probably going to run in the 4.4 low, probably run like 4.42, 4.43, that was at Georgia and at Texas? Why is this kid not productive? Like, I'm confused. I'm confused about it. So he's one. Second one would be Patrick Paul out of Houston. I think he's going to go early second round, 6'7", 330 pounds. My guy is stiff as a board and can't redirect as an offensive tackle. I'm good. I'm all right. I don't need that, sir. I'm sorry. It's just not my guy. Just not it. The third, man, I don't know if I ever really have a good third one. Let me think. A quarterback's going to bust. I know I'm not even looking at the chat. I'm assuming Caleb Williams' name has been thrown out there like 6 times. I'm assuming probably in the chat, but I need to open it back up because I don't know if it actually has or not. I'm sure someone has said Caleb Williams though. No one has said Caleb Williams. Wow. I thought that was going to be like an answer for everyone in the chat.
Maybe people are kind of being objective now.
Maybe.
Yeah, you were on our show the other day and we were talking about being objective and evaluating the quarterback position and how difficult it is. It's I think Jaden Daniels could be one that's, coming off the Heisman and, rising in mock drafts. I think people might feel like, but at the quarterback position, man, it's all about where you go as much as it is the talent and the situation. That is the danger for me. For me, that's the danger of the whole Bears thing.
Yep.
It's not the fact that I don't believe in Caleb's talent. It's like, this is a bad organization, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
It's not a good situation. So
sure,
that within itself, I think if someone threw Bo Nix, I think Bo Nix is who he is. Bo Nix is if you give him a run game and let him play action, he's going to be accurate. He's going to hit the check downs. I got one.
I got one. You want my quarterback pick, Sean? My actual quarterback pick? Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington.
I can see that. I can see that. But once again, where does he go? Does he go somewhere he can sit?
Right. He's going to be a very volatile player as well, because a lot of people are projecting him in the first rounds. But I'm waiting to see the medicals in Indianapolis, because he's had a lot of injuries, man.
Very much
whole
so.
lot of injuries. So if he ends up going in the second or third round, I wouldn't say he's a bust, right? Because like second, third round quarterbacks are a gamble anyway. But if he goes top 20, then we could be talking, because there are some things about Michael Penix I really like. I think he's tough in the pocket. I think accuracy outside the numbers and just general arm strength outside numbers is really good. Like, ball comes out easy, spins it. But accuracy, ball placement to the middle of the field, that worries me a lot, man. Because, Sean, if there's one place where you do not want to be inaccurate, it's to the middle of the field, sir, where there is a whole lot of people sitting there trying to create turnovers. That's not the place you want to have bad ball.
You don't want to miss high over the middle. You don't want to be late over the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. It is. Yep. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you
put out a great tweet. Yeah, that tweet you put out yesterday. Don't fall in love with a week of practice.
Okay, I was going to say, Sean, I put a lot of great tweets out, man. So I'm just making sure which one you're talking about.
Somebody was talking about, JD Bertrand was the fastest, 40 out of all the linebackers, and I just kind of rolled my eyes like, all right.
You know when he hit that, right, Sean? I don't even know this for a fact, but I guarantee I know it. It was when he got beat on a wheel route by Marshawn Lloyd. He was in just flat out sprint recovery mode the entire time. Like, I don't care about that, man. I don't care about that at all. So yeah, I don't care about that.
That's the type of stuff, man. That's the best talent evaluators do their due diligence.
Yeah.
With all of the data. They don't just fall in love with one part of the data.
No.
You do the work.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. I am excited, though. You need to come out to Indianapolis, Sean. Indy's not that far from you, is it?
Dude, if I can, you got a credential for me?
I can get a credential for you, sir.
Absolutely. I'm there. That's a quick drive.
All right, man. Yeah, come out to Indy, man. I'm going to be there from the 27th to the 4th. So, yeah, man. Let's do that. I even got an Airbnb all situated, man. So yeah, come on out.
You went big time. You Airbnb in it. I actually have family in the NAP, so
okay.
I would be good in the NAP.
Dude, I love Indianapolis, by the way. I love Indy because everything's so close, right? Yeah. Like you can get to any bar, any restaurant, to the convention center. It's a walk, man. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Yeah. All right, so let's go now. Let's go now to, and thank you so much for the super chat again, Tyler. Great question. And we're going to move now to Salty Virginia Peanuts had another one, Sean. He said, Notre Dame from, how do you say it, Coach? Is it Lendo? Lendo. I need to change my process here. From like Lendo.
DOE. Yeah.
Yep. Man. Lendo to Mike Denbrock to Al Golden to Chad Bowden has been putting its money where Freeman's mouth is. This is very recent change. How much is Bavakwa? I believe that's how you pronounce that last name, right? Did I get that one? You get that one?
This plays right into our conversation today that we were talking pre-show.
Spin it, man. Spin it, John.
How much credit is Jack Swarbrick going to get moving forward, even when he leaves office? And what's the line of demarcation for, okay, this is Pete Bavakwa's football program in his era? And is it going to be 2 years? Is it going to be 3 years from now? And as of right now, it's still Jack Swarbrick is still very much heavily involved. Much heavily involved. I think there have been to me, I think part of the reason Jack is stepping away because he knows certain things that need to be done. And what needs to be done might not necessarily be something that he thinks he's the best person to do or that he necessarily agrees with, per se, right? He said he wanted to be a good steward financially. it's hard to keep the best coaches and the best staff and really be effective in NIL if you keep that moniker. Now, good stewardship could be spending your money wisely or spending it on the right person.
Right.
Some people might feel like Sam Hartman was bad spending. Some people might feel that way. That's up for debate, right? Some people might feel like you didn't spend in last year's offensive coordinator search, and it hurt you, and it impacted Sam Hartman, which impacted the team. So these are the things that I think Salty's talking about, and the dominoes have been falling positively from Lando, then Brock, Golden, even Mike Mickens, who teams have been coming after. All these things have been lining up to make you feel like Notre Dame is finally choosing winning. Right. Not just talking about the history of winning, but actually choosing the path to winning now. Yep. So I think there's enough credit to go around.
I think it always, I don't think it comes as I don't think it rarely ever is as simple as one guy getting all the credit, right? Mm-hmm. I think that even just for this situation Salty's talking about, the financial backing and support that has been this off season, just in particular, I think Jack Swarbrick has to get some credit for that, right? Because I think his hand may have been forced a little bit with the Andy Ludwig situation. Like, I think that pushed you in this direction where you couldn't be embarrassed again, right? Like, you couldn't have put a bad eye on the Notre Dame program for the second straight off season. But also, I think, Bavakwa is also a part of this conversation, right? Like, I think that this is a merging of realities right now, Sean, because I'll be honest with you. If the Chad Bowden thing happened last offseason, I would have no confidence that Notre Dame was going to figure it out and get it done. Zero. But this offseason, when the first thing came out and Brian reported it on the board and everything, not for 1 minute, and this is complete honesty, not for 1 minute did I think that Notre Dame wasn't going to match and make sure that didn't happen. Not for 1 minute. I didn't have a single doubt that Chad Bowden would be back. Zero doubt. I know some people in the beat and they're doing their due diligence. I'm sure that some people in the beat are probably reaching out to multiple sources and Michigan people and all this type of stuff. I didn't even reach out to anyone because I'm just like, he's not going to Michigan. He's not. I just don't believe it. Just don't believe it because I think that you feel better about where the program is right now. They are willing to put that money up, man. Put their money where their mouth is. I think it's a great thing right now. You spent big to get who you perceive to be maybe the best offensive coordinator in college football. You went big and hired a prominent name as a strength and conditioning coach, and you made sure that your dynamic director of recruiting, who's going to have a different title moving forward, did not go to Michigan, the defending national champs. You did that in one offseason, man. Tell me that doesn't matter. Tell me that doesn't mean something. That means something. You mentioned Mike Mickens, making sure that he's not going anywhere. Notre Dame's putting their money where their mouth is this offseason, which is why I feel better about the trajectory of this program than I probably ever have in my adult life. I can't remember a time where I felt as good because not only do I see the talent coming in, not only do I see coaches coming in, I also see backing. I see guys saying, well, we got you, man. We got you. We got you, Marcus. Go do what you got to do, man. It's a great change, isn't it? It's such a great change because for the first time in a long time, I feel like Notre Dame is ready to stand tall and stand firm on a full level against anybody.
Yeah.
They're willing to recruit against anybody. They're willing to throw money around against anybody from a financial backing perspective. And you have a young, energetic coach that I think is he's a great role model and he's a great symbol of your program potentially. So, hey man, I'm in on the future. I'm in. Man, I think that it is. Yeah.
This reminds me to better explain.
Yes.
From my standpoint, my mom is a very unorthodox mom in the sense of your typical mother. Because most mothers are loving and nurturing. That's just not saying my mother doesn't have nurturing factors, but my mom is not the kiss you. She's not that, right? She didn't come from a family background with that. On the other hand, my dad is very much still to this day, like kiss his boys, love on his boys, and we're all adults, bro. But that's what his dad and his grandfather did to him. And so my mom, one of the ways that she shows her love is in giving. She's a giver. She loves buying gifts, but she'll spend money on gifts, but she will not spend money on shoes. She refuses. Since we were kids, I'm not paying $100 for some shoes. And now it's up to upwards of those same shoes are upwards of $200-$300. Like, I'm not buying you that. But she's a giver. And I think that's Jack Swarbrick in a sense. Because I think people think Jack Swarbrick has not spent during his time in Notre Dame. And that's not true.
Right.
He has raised money. He has spent money.
Yeah.
It's just certain areas that he's refused for whatever reason to say, I'm not jumping feet first into the NIL landscape.
Right.
Because I see right now it's a mess. I'm not about to subject us to that right now. And that goes back to his good stewardship. It's like certain things he's just unwilling or he doesn't feel comfortable spending that amount of money on that. Right. Even now, things are good. Dude, I've talked to people connected to the program. I've heard that there's been big money already raised to build and add on to the facilities, whether it's the Google or other things that are going to help the football program. Well, that's Jack Swarbrick. Even when he steps out of office, that's going to impact recruiting. His decision and his legacy are still going to help Notre Dame win games. That's him. So you have to give him credit, man. You have to give him credit. You just have to give him credit for what he's done. And even if he did mess up, in this, maybe he feels like, that's a lot of buyout for a guy that hasn't won a national championship. You don't know what his mind was when it came to the Andy Ludwig situation. But there was something there that made him feel like, man, do we really want to spend this much money just on the buyout before we get to the salary?
Right.
And that's his right. As fans, we might feel like you got it, spend it. Well, unfortunately, he's in charge of making sure that they do the best by the money that they have. And maybe he felt like that wasn't the right hire. And it turned into Mike Denbrock. So you have to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, would you rather have Andy Ludwig or would you rather have Mike Denbrock right now?
Yep.
And he saved money on the deal.
I'd rather have Mike Denbrock right now. Yes, I'd rather have Mike Denbrock right now. I would agree with that.
Hey, you know what else? He saved Notre Dame money on the deal. And I guarantee you he's getting kudos from the board members for that. It just is what it is. So moving forward, there are a lot of things that are going to happen moving forward that even when Jack is not here, he's still going to deserve some level of credit for it, especially when it comes to money.
Yeah. I think it clouds our vision sometimes, Sean, right? Like the Andy Ludwig situation, I think for a lot of people just makes everyone just sour on Jack Swarbrick and what he did at Notre Dame. He did a lot of great things. Did he make some mistakes? Did he do a couple things that we wish would have been different? Of course, but that's every person ever. Has there ever been a person in the world that made a decision that everyone agreed with all the time? Like that's never been a thing, right? It's never been a thing. So yeah, there could have been some things different, maybe made a couple of different decisions, but for the most part, Jack Swarbrick did a lot of really good things for Notre Dame.
And Jack has the wherewithal and the talent, being as one of the main gatekeepers that sits at the table of college football, of being able to know and play the long game for Notre Dame as an independent. Like I have to do what's best to make sure that Notre Dame stays in a position of power moving forward, and certain decisions that he has to make might not be that appeasing to the fan base, to people that cover the team, to some people that even work within the university. But it's his job to make those tough decisions. And he's made them.
Yeah.
He's made them, so coming out of that, we talked about it consistently coming out of that debacle this time last year. Like,
And the
yo,
email he sent, right? The email with
yeah,
the misguided passion and all that type of
yeah,
stuff. Yeah, I get it, man.
we
I get
talked
it.
about it. Fans talked about it. Like, you
Yeah.
have to give your players and your coaches a chance.
Yep.
This can't happen again. So I don't think he needed Pete Bavacco coming out of that situation to understand, like, yo, I can't let this happen again. I don't need
Yep.
another email, good stewardship speech. I don't have
Asking
another
for
one
money.
in me. Yeah.
Asking for the money at the end of the email. And yeah, we don't need
Oh
that.
man.
We don't do that. We don't need that again. I agree. I 100% agree. Oh man. Yep. Great question though. Salty as always, sir. We had a quick one, Sean. Kevin Park said any word on Al Golden staying or going or staying. So as of right now, sounds like he's going to stay, but we'll see obviously the rest of the hiring cycle. And the good thing is that the NFL jobs, Sean, they're filling up very quickly here. So there's not a ton of spots left there. College jobs, I don't know if that is a avenue that Al Golden would even consider, depending on what job comes open or what job is currently open. But trending in the right direction that Al Golden be back in 2024. We'll obviously see how everything goes. But yeah, seems like you're in a good spot there. All right, Sean, here's an interesting question. Brandon Plesner wants our opinion. Has your linebacker board changed in priority now with the new offers? Well, Brandon, I would say this. We try to project who we know is a priority player for Notre Dame more than anything. But I'll ask you this, Sean, and we talked about this a little bit. With Mr. Tatch now being offered, with Antoine Delorier being offered last offseason, has your formula for what a good linebacker class changed in 2025 at all? I think we asked it that way.
No, top guys are still the top guys. You still want a Christian Jones in the class. Like, you're darn right. If you can get Christian Jones in the class, go get him. You're darn right. And if some other guys that we watched recently get offers has to take a step back or has to wait to see how that recruitment goes, because at some point there's going to be a time when Notre Dame has to be honest with themselves and say, okay, if going into the summer with this young man worth the possibility of losing out on this young man? Like, where do we evaluate them? Like, are they even or is it close? Because if it's close, I might be willing to take this kid that's ready now than to fight for this kid that might be a little bit better. Or if we think he's that much better, then this kid is worth going after at this position. And I think that's pretty much across the board at all positions, and definitely this year and linebacker. It goes back to what we said. This is a year where with the new wide receiver offers and the new linebacker offers, we're not mad. Like, if these are the two kids that end up in the class, okay, let's go. If we end up with Delorier and Tatch, let's roll.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
I'd be very happy. I think it hasn't changed my formula much, Brandon. Like I said, I would be happy if both those guys end up in the class, or one of them ends up in the class. But I still want Notre Dame to go after Marco Jones, baby. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Noah McHale, Christian Jones, and we'll see what it looks like in the end, but it shouldn't change their priority. They should be recruiting a bunch of different guys to get their best possible class potentially in there. So, and we'll see, obviously, as well, because we know Antoine Delorier is setting up a visit to Notre Dame. We know that Mr. Tatch is also setting up a visit to Notre Dame. So we'll see how things trend after those visits when they finally get to campus. So apparently Carl Weathers died, Sean, which is a very sad thing.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat. Yeah.
That's wild, man. It was a lot of great roles growing up, man.
His performance with James Brown in Rocky was absolutely amazing.
Oh, incredible. Incredible.
Oh, dude. Living in
America.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Dude.
Hey, man, you forget I'm right outside of Philly, man. I know every scene from Rocky, baby. All right, let's go. All right, so we had a question here, Sean. NH said, who, Notre Dame players only, raised their draft stock the most at the Senior Bowl? Anyone lower it? It's a great question. I would say first thing foremost, NH, lowering draft stock is more of a media thing, okay? It's a little bit more of a media thing. The Senior Bowl, East-West Shrine, Hula Bowl, College Ground Showcase, Tropical Bowl. There's a million bowls at this point, all-star games, a million, even after the NFLPA Bowl shut down this year. They are for verification, okay, from NFL scouts. Either you're going to go there and it's going to verify your thoughts on a player. It's exactly what I thought he was going to look like. Done. Process is over. I know what that type of player is as far as the evaluation on the field. Or Sean, they're going to look at him and be like, man, I thought that kid was really fast on film, and then he is struggling to separate this week. Like, what's going on there? Where's the second gear I thought he had as a wide receiver? That's a red flag to go watch film, right? Go back and watch the film again. Maybe there's something you missed there. Mm-hmm. So guys rarely ever raise or lower their stock out of these events. It's more a red flag or a check mark, if that I hope that makes sense. That's more of what this process is. Mm-hmm. Now, who impressed in the Senior Bowl and I think helped their case to get a check mark is the better way to phrase it, in my opinion. Couple guys. One, Cam Hart. Cam Hart was the best player in Mobile of any Notre Dame player, in my opinion. Start to finish on, there was one rep day one where he got lost a little bit down the field and didn't locate a deeper ball against Javon Baker, the wide receiver out of UCF. But otherwise, Cam was really good in Mobile, excuse me. He was really good down there at the Senior Bowl. Really physical at the line of scrimmage, physical in the stem, showed pretty good short area quickness for almost near 6'3" corner. He undercut a couple passes. He had an interception in one of the one-on-one drills. He looks really good. I think he helped himself this week. I think that he helped himself. I also think that Maris Loifel helped himself, Sean. I think that Maris did really well this week. I mentioned this. I was talking to a scout that had comped him to, I don't know how much you've seen this guy, but Frankie Louvu that plays for the Carolina Panthers, who's a really good kind of just like Swiss Army knife type linebacker, plays all over the place. That was the comp I got there. I think that Maris helped himself tremendously. JD, I thought kind of just was what he was, which is fine. You know, like he's a very smart player. I think that he has a little bit of struggles in pass coverage, which is something that we probably anticipated after watching him at Notre Dame. Sam Hartman, I think, helped himself. I thought Sam played pretty well. The only person I would say maybe hurt themselves a little bit in the sense of maybe didn't quite showcase what you wanted him to see from the week perspective. I think Javonte Jean-Baptiste struggled in Mobile. I didn't think he looked great. He kind of got lost a little bit against some of the longer offensive linemen. He struggled to get off of blocks consistently. I don't think he had a great showing, but otherwise, I think Notre Dame just in general, I think they helped themselves in Mobile. I think that they had a lot of good showings this week. Cam Hart, though, I think was the best one.
Look, I'm praying that he gets to go back home and gets to play with Kyle Hamilton again. I really am. I'm praying that the Ravens draft Cam Hart, let him play with one of his best friends. He was asked about, what is it about your game that's allowed you to grow and evolve? Because it seems like, you were really good against all the different types of wide receivers this week. And he was like, Mike Mickens, man. It's Mike Mickens. He gave all the credit to Mike Mickens and his development. Look, I've said this before. Well, Cam Hart used to take a beating from Notre Dame fans, a beating. And I used to say, ladies and gentlemen, this man plays at 75, 80%.
Yep.
When he shouldn't probably even be on the field. You know why he's out there? Because there's no one else behind him. There's Cam Hart, and then the drop-off is, and it's a reason why you saw him get a little nick injury, and Mike Mickens was like, go sit down. Right. You know why he told him to go sit down? Because he had Christian Gray and Jaden Mickey. If people knew the number of games that Cam Hart played at Notre Dame, guarding the number one receiver on another team injured at 75, 80%, your appreciation for Cam Hart would be totally different. You want to go see Cam Hart at 100%? Watch him this year. You want to see Cam Hart at 100%? Go watch that Wisconsin game at Soldier Field. That's Cam Hart at 100%. And
agreed.
We tried to be transparent and let people know, like, this dude is a warrior, man. It's all about, and going to the next level is going to be about his health.
Yes.
If he stays healthy, he's going to be good.
Sean, that is the remaining hurdle that needs to be checked. And the one that I was most concerned about, I thought Cam was going to have a good week in Senior Bowl. He had an even better week than I thought he was going to have. I thought he was going to be good all week. He was fantastic for most of the week. But like you said, when he goes to Indianapolis, I expect him to test well. I expect him to look great in person.
What do you? I asked Malik this. What do you think he needs to run at his length and size?
He can get away with a 4.5, 4.52. He can get away with that. But if he ran 4.4 high, it would be very beneficial for him. If he ran like 4.47 to 4.49, that would just be like a check. You're good. You're 6'2", 7'8". You're 204 pounds. You have 32 and 5/8 inch arms. Like you're good to go here, man. So if he can run anything 4.4 high, fantastic. But if he runs 4.5 to 4.52, 4.53, it's fine. You're good. Pass. Check. You're good. Yeah. So but more than anything, because we know Cam's going to kill the interviews. He's going to kill the interviews. I expect him to test well as well. We've heard that he's run some really good times at Notre Dame. So I expect him to test well, expect him to interview well. Medicals. God, I hope those shoulders check out, man. I hope they check out. That's a scary proposition for a defensive player with multiple shoulder injuries.
Yeah.
Same thing with Peyton Wilson from NC State. He's had multiple shoulder injuries. Like, I hope it turns out okay. But we shall see. I hope for the best for Cam, though, man, because Sean, we have lost this in today's game a little bit. Cam Hart was a warrior.
Yes.
Warrior, dude. Warrior. There's some players that you look at and just say that guy would have run through a brick wall if a coach would have let him, right? Like he would have given everything he had, and he did give everything he had. Cam Hart's a warrior. Cam Hart is an absolute warrior, and I hope nothing but the best for that guy, man. Howard Cross, same way. Like there's some guys you just gravitate towards because they do whatever it takes, man. And you love them for it. You love them for it. It's fantastic. All right, let's go to Pete Weber. What's up, Pete? How much of the Chad Bowden past few days can you tell us about? Any idea the numbers that were getting tossed around? I might have to go into recruiting. Pete, numbers, we can't put that out there. I've heard the numbers though, and it was substantial. We'll just leave it at that. Okay. I would say that Michigan was offering not just money, but obviously a different position, a general manager position, a little bit above what a director of recruiting would just typically be, as far as like his responsibilities and title. So they were offering money and title. Ultimately, Notre Dame was able to show that this was the place to be and to make it attractive enough for Chad Bowden to return to Notre Dame. So hats off to Notre Dame, man. That's all we can say about it. They did a great job of making sure that he's still going to be in South Bend, Indiana.
I said this earlier, bro.
Yep.
I'm thankful it was Sharon Moore making the offer instead of Jim Harbaugh. I know that.
Yeah. Do you think if it was Coach Harbaugh, it maybe ends a little bit differently? I mean, I don't know. I generally don't know that.
I don't know if Sharon Moore has the gravitas because you knew Notre Dame was going to have the right to counter. You knew that.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if Sharon Moore has the pull to go back to Michigan and say, yo, get it done.
Right.
Jim Harbaugh, coming off a national championship, might have had that pull to tell Michigan, like, yo, up the offer. So Harbaugh going to the NFL might have helped in this situation.
Definitely didn't hurt, definitely didn't hurt Notre Dame's favor to try to get him back. There's no doubt about that. 100% agree. We had Jason Smith who just asked a quick one. He said, Josh Petty still being recruited by Notre Dame. Yes, Jason, they were there to see Josh Petty this week. He's a 2025 offensive tackle out of the state of Georgia. They like him a lot. And I think that he has some interest in Notre Dame, Sean. But again, until he gets to campus, it's just not a realistic target, right? Like it's just not a realistic target. So they'll keep recruiting him, but I just don't think he's a realistic target as of today. Interesting one here from NH says, of this year's head coach moves, hires, examples, Kalen DeBoer, Jed Fish, etc., who will have the most success in their first year and in their next 3 years? Let's go first year, Sean. Some of the prominent new head coaches, who's going to have the most success in year one at their prospective school? It's a little tough. It's a little tough.
I really like Jed Fish, bro.
I do too, man. It's just he's got to replace a
You know
lot in
what?
Washington. Yeah.
The new hire at Arizona. You know why?
Yeah.
Because Fafita and McMillan stayed.
Yeah, and now they're going down to the Big 12, which is losing Texas and Oklahoma.
That's
a good one.
That's
So
a good platform.
Yeah. So that's Brent Brennan,
yeah,
who was at San Jose State. I'm not sold on him as a great head coach, but I think that I actually agree with you there, Sean, that he might win 10 plus games in year one just based upon who he has coming back. I know they lost like Jonah Coleman and some other guys like that, but the fact that they got Fafita and the wide receiver to come back as well, like McMillan, like that's pretty substantial. And the fact that they're going back to the Big 12 that doesn't have Texas or Oklahoma anymore. My issue would be, what's funny is Arizona might be the situation. Brennan might be the situation, the answer for number one. But the next 3 years, he would not be my answer because I'm not sold that he's going to be able to sustain that program. You know what I mean?
I could actually see DeBoer in Alabama taking a small step back.
Yeah. The near future. And then, Yep.
And then, reestablishing things. I can see that.
That could happen. Yeah. I think so. Alabama's going to look a lot different moving forward than what they have under Nick Saban, but different isn't a bad thing necessarily. Different is just different. They might have to function a little bit uniquely, which will be
like that relationship with him and Jalen Milroe. I'm very excited to see. It was strange to see the interaction between him and Michael Penix at the Senior Bowl with that photo op situation. Not to say,
I didn't see that. What happened there? I didn't.
Michael Penix was taking a picture with someone, and Kalen DeBoer tried to jump in the picture, and Michael Penix kind of pushed him away. So that could be for multiple reasons that has nothing to do with their relationship because they seem to have a really good relationship. But to see what he can do with Jalen Milroe, it's going to be very interesting. I think Jalen Milroe definitely is going to have better coaching this year than he had this past year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's definitely going to be in a more quarterback-friendly offense than what Tommy Rees had going. There's no doubt about that. So, you might trust Caleb DeBoer to develop it. Even though, did you see? I don't know if was this official yesterday. I missed this announcement, but Ryan Grubb's going to Seattle as their offensive coordinator. Is that what's happening
in the NFL?
I think I saw that.
I saw something about that, and then Hatley left Boston College to go be the DC.
Yeah, for the Packers, right? Be the Packers DC.
Yeah, man. College football has changed, man.
It really has.
It's changed. Like getting a job like BC is seems like a dream because how guys would just take jobs. I don't know if that's going to happen. Yeah, Green Bay.
So it looks like Ryan Grubb considering Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator job. Yeah. So I guess it is not official, or it hasn't been a thing that has been finalized yet. We'll see though, man. That would be very interesting. I was joking with a buddy though that was saying something about it yesterday, Sean. I was like, Ryan Grubb down to Alabama, ate some Alabama barbecue sauce, and was like, dude, I'm out of here, brother. I don't need any of that mayo-based barbecue sauce. I am good, man.
That's so petty. That's so petty.
I mean, is it wrong though? Is it wrong? I don't know. Is it wrong? But yeah. Oh God. I wouldn't eat that stuff if you paid me. I don't even hate mayo either. Like I have no issue with mayo and like aiolis and stuff. Like I'm cool, but like mayo-based barbecue sauce, nah, man. I'm good. I'm good. I don't need all that. I don't need all that. Yeah. Salty Virginia Peanuts. Notre Dame coach Mike Brown offered a 9th grade wide receiver, and that dude already has other big offers. How often does Notre Dame offer 9th graders, and why this dude? So, of course, we're talking to the young man. Salty, you're talking about the young man that we were talking about earlier, Jameer Brown, who is out of Huber Heights. I want to make sure I get it right. Huber Heights, Wayne. And yes, 2027. So he's a 9th grade player. He actually was offered, I believe, as a corner, though, because Mickens and Marcus Freeman were the ones that offered. But regardless, he has been offered as a wide receiver in some instances as well. It doesn't happen often, Sean. I was talking about this yesterday with someone, but like Notre Dame doesn't offer ninth graders very often, man. Like that's a rarity. That is a rare
But
thing.
as you said, the alma mater of both of those guys,
Yeah. Relationship there, obviously.
Relationship there. It's a special situation. That's probably why it happened the way it happened.
Absolutely. All right, and we're going to the next one here. Great question, though. Great question. Jason Smith asks, and we're going to rock through a few of these more because we got to get out of here in probably like 10, 15 minutes, but we'll see. Jason Smith, was there a 2024 recruit that you had the meh feeling about? Were there any that you thought were a stretch that their senior film changed your minds? Well, Sean, I already talked about one, man. Bryce Young, when he was officially offered, I was like, dude, I don't get that one. And then I saw him as a junior and I was like, I got it a little bit more, but like if you would have told me that Bryce Young junior year was the Bryce Young you were getting, I would not have prioritized that player. I wouldn't have prioritized him.
Right.
Maybe you would have taken him in the right situation, whatever. But like Bryce Young is definitely one that senior film was like, dude, everybody wants that kid now. Like, absolutely. Yes, great evaluation, Mr. Bryce Young.
That was it for me. I think we both looked at Bryce Young and were like, yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, yep. That DNA kind of came forth. Like,
yeah. Cause I mean, I was good with, obviously I was good with CJ. I was good with Aeneas, obviously. I was good with Keidron Young, obviously. Micah Gilbert, Cam Williams. The first time I saw Logan Saldate, I was like, cool. I'm good. I'm good with Logan Saldate. Like, Jack Larson, I was fine with at the time. Offensive line wise. Yeah, nobody there that I really had all right, here's one, Sean. Slight one. I liked Anthony Knapp when he was offered, but I wasn't like sold on Anthony Knapp. Senior film definitely did something for me with Anthony Knapp personally.
I can say the same thing about Sean Sevillano.
Yeah, that's another one that makes sense.
Initially.
Yeah, because I was always good with Logan Thomas. I was always good. Let me think who else. Linebacker, I was always good with Bodie Cahoon. I know some people weren't on the Bodie Cahoon thing, but I remember when they offered him, I'm like, I'd take Bodie Cahoon. I'm totally good with Bodie Cahoon. Totally good with that one. Yeah, so we'll see. But look, Teddy Rizak is a player that still needs to prove something to me. Kenny Urlacher is still a player that needs to prove something to me. But we'll see. I hope they all flourish at Notre Dame. We're Notre Dame to win a national championship in the next couple of years, man. I want them to be a big part of that solution. Wait, Chris Ayers with one who says, what is the weakest part of the Notre Dame football as you see it as of February 2nd, 2024? Could be a position room, staff placement. Just curious of what IB breakdown thinks. Sean, position group, if we're going there, I think the one that I have the main question marks right now is still safety. Probably safety. Yeah. Safety and Viper. Those are the two ones. Like, I think Viper will be fine in a year or two when Logan Thomas starts getting a little bit of weight on him and you start developing some of your young guys in the room, Boubacar Traore. But I think Viper and safety is one. Because, Sean, like, let's face it, man. After this year, you're going to lose at safety. And this is even 2024 centric. This is just moving forward. You're going to lose Xavier Watts and Rod Hurd after this year, too. Yeah. Where it's like, you're going to be back to the drawing board at safety unless, Adon or somebody else like takes a massive step this season and you're like, oh, okay, we'll be all right. We'll be fine. So, yeah, man, I think safety and Viper for me. I don't know if you had any other ones that you want to throw in, but that was me personally. So.
No, I agree. I was going to say safety as well, but the 25 class literally could be the beginning of that remedy for that particular position.
Yep. Agreed. All right, let's go to. I'm going to knock this one out real quick. Jason Smith just said, is the James Simon situation a Owen Wafel type situation where someone gets pushed out of the class, or will they take 3 and figure it out? Jason, I think it's a little bit of over recruiting. Ultimately, it's a long shot if you would even get a James Simon just in general, right? But I think he's such a good player that Notre Dame would try to make the numbers work if it ended up being that situation. But also, I think they're over recruiting to a degree at some positions because you never know what's going to happen, from a decommitment and other factors outside, maybe roster numbers or get to a certain point where you have to take another player that you really like. There's just a lot of things that are going to happen there. So I think it's a little bit of a combination of everything. I wouldn't say it's an Owen Wafel situation though, where I think the staff is still very high on Justin Thurman and Daniel Anderson. I don't think anything's changed in their mind there. So I don't think it's a matter of someone getting pushed out of class. No, I wouldn't say that. Sean, this was a good one. Chris Ayers with another one. Who is the 2024 Notre Dame pick to click? Meaning, of all the lowercase beasts that Notre Dame has, like an Eli Raritan, who is the chat's pick to click to finally show that promise on the field? So basically, breakout star, Sean, a talented kid that hasn't really shown it as much on the field yet. Who is your early breakout star for the 2024 season? Eli Raritan's an interesting one, by the way.
Eli Raritan's up. Jason Onye will be someone because we heard about him last year. Can he take that next step and kind of be someone that can solidify behind Riley Mills and Howard Cross? The promise we saw from Boubacar Traore in the USC game, right? Could he be a breakout star? Jaden Mickey, can he take a step forward in the slot? Can he step up and live up to, what we thought he was going to be when he stepped into his first practice with full confidence? And then, of course, the quarterbacks, right? If Kenny Minchie gets a shot, if CJ Carr gets a shot, even if it's because this is the confidence of that quarterback room. Riley Leonard felt, man, I got to come back quick for Duke after the Notre Dame loss. This is our season. I have to save our season. We can look Riley Leonard in the eye and say, my man, you can sit down for the next 3 weeks. We can win games. Right? We can win games with these dudes at quarterback. Rest up. And that is, so you could get a young man in the quarterback room that gets an opportunity, and next thing you know, it's wow. What about Deion Cozy if he's healthy?
Man, I have to see it at some point, Sean. I'm just out of patience with Deion, man. I think he's very talented, but I just need to see it. You know what I'm saying? Just need to see it.
Could he be a Javon McKinley type?
Could be.
Miles Boykin type.
I mean, he's talented enough to be that guy. It just
yeah.
Is he willing to put in all the work, and can he stay healthy? There's so many conversations there that I'm hopeful for. So yeah. I think 3 guys that I'm interested in. Boubacar Traore would probably be my pick overall. I hope that they let him unleash as a pass rusher a little bit, at least in 2024. He's not going to be a full-time starter more than likely, but at least get some pass rush reps. Another one, Sean, young safety, Adon Schuler would be great if he steps up and becomes the heir apparent there. That would be great. Other one, I mentioned this one the other day, Sean. I have no idea if this is going to happen, but what about Sullivan Absher getting a shot to start at guard potentially? At least a competition opportunity to play a guard. That would be
not that far-fetched though, right?
It's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not. I would love them to look at Pat Coogan, all due respect, and be like, Pat, we like a lot of what you did last year, but we also need to be better at that position. And if you're a part of that, great, but you need to compete. You need to compete and try to be that guy, right? So you're competing with Sam Pendleton. You're competing with Sullivan Absher. You're competing with a bunch of different guys to be that guy. And then, see what happens. So Sullivan Absher would be a very interesting one. But
what?
That's like a super dark horse one, though. So we'll see. Sean, 2025 class, NH wants to know, what's your dream wide receiver class in 2025? Dream wide receiver. Let's say it's a 4-man class. We'll say 4-man.
Derek Meadows, Lex Cyrus, Tayvion Taylor, Elijah Burris.
Okay.
I'll go with those 4. I'm cool with those 4.
My 4, and someone asked me on the board, and someone asked me on the show too, I think. My 4, Sean. Tayvion Taylor, Derek Meadows, Dalen McCutcheon, and Lex Cyrus. That's mine. Woo! Baby, that's some speed right
heck,
there.
I mean,
Sir.
you might as well. Heck, yeah.
Can you imagine them having a race, Sean? Here, rank it. Ready? Derek Meadows, Lex Cyrus, Dalen McCutcheon, Tayvion Taylor. All four race at the same time. What's the order of the finish? It's a good one, man. I know who comes in first, but otherwise, it's a pretty close one.
McCutcheon. I don't know, man.
It's tough, right?
Hart,
It's a good conversation.
You know, one thing I know for sure.
Yeah.
Carson Hobbs would say he can beat them all.
Yeah, he definitely would.
Well, Carson Hobbs would say, "Wait till we get on the field. I could beat all of you." But no,
that's so funny. Yeah.
Derek Meadows, his stride is so long.
Yeah. He ran 4.5 flat at Notre Dame, man. So he can run. He can run a good bit. Yeah.
Who would you have?
I think it would go Lex Cyrus 1 because he's a 10,400 meter guy. I would have Lex Cyrus number 1. I think number 2 would be Tayvion Taylor, but slightly. Like, I don't think that it's an easy one. 3 Derek Meadows, 4 Dalen McCutcheon would be my guess. That would be mine. Because Dalen could run too, man. But like Derek, like you said, Derek's got those long strides, man. Like he might be able to stride it out at the end there. He might be able to stride it out. Ooh, that's some speed though, man. Can you imagine? I mean, even if you just get 2 or 3 of those guys, you don't need all 4. You don't need all 4, but if you got all 4, it's like, dang.
That's a heck of a class.
Yeah, man. A lot of speed there. Whole lot of speed. Well, that's not even counting like, I mean, even some of the guys Notre Dame has already, Sean. It's like some guys that can run, man. I got some dudes that can run. James Flanagan can run. Justin Thurman can run. Deuce Knight can run. Like, these guys can flat out fly, man.
Mm-hmm.
Wild. I think 2025 ends up being a faster class than 2024, by the way. Faster, just faster. Not saying better. Not saying better football players. I'm saying just faster. Like, it's a lot of speed coming to South Bend. We had Old Grim who says, if the coaching staff stays together, will they get everyone that they want? No one's ever going to get everyone that they want. No one bats 1,000, right, Sean? Like, not going to get everyone they want, but you need to have a good hit rate, obviously. But like, no one ever hits 1,000. No one ever bats 1,000, right? Like, it's never going to happen. So, all right, we got wanted to knock this one out real quick. Chris Ayers just said, does Logan Thomas really weigh 197 pounds? Chris, I would say just like hold off on that until the spring for the updated rosters, because sometimes those things they put weights that are initial weights, like when they first ever visit campus and such. So like, I'm not 100% sure about that one, but I would just wait to see on that one. Cause he's not a filled out guy, obviously, looking at him at St. Edward this year, Sean, but he certainly looked a little bigger than 197 pounds to me on film. Like, certainly a little bigger than that. So I think that's probably an old weight, but that's just my assumption there. Just my assumption. All right. We had, wait, what the heck does this mean? I don't know what Tommy's saying here, Sean, but I'll bring it up in case you can decipher this. Rye Guy and Big Sean, what is your initial strategy for whatever end of the world scenario you think is most plausible? What the heck does that mean? What the heck does that mean? I don't know. Tommy, I joke around with you, obviously, but like, I would genuinely like to answer this question. I have no idea what this is asking me. Do you know what he's saying? Is he asking me however I think the world's going to end? A zombie apocalypse? Is that what he's asking me? I'm so confused. What does that, Tommy? I'm asking, what is that? Are you asking me how the world's going to end? Is that what it's asking?
Honestly, me? I don't think about the end of the world. I don't.
Yeah. Well, I hope the world doesn't end while I'm a part of it, you know?
I kind of want my kids to kind of have to deal with this type of conversation. Like,
right.
I'm being honest. I really don't think about it that much. So,
yeah, Tommy, I need a little bit more, man. What do you do when the world is ending? Oh, okay, Sean. What am I going to do when the world's ending? I don't know. Hug my family. What's this? I
yeah.
don't understand what this question. I don't. Tommy, I Tommy, like you asked me about aliens one time. I answered your question about aliens because like, uh, uh, I I'm moving on. I don't know.
Like, tell
I
me,
don't know.
like, dude, I don't think about it. That's just the type of person. I don't think about the end of the world. I don't.
Right?
My thoughts are
Right.
too about leaving an inheritance for my kids. That's my life. That's what I push towards. I've rarely thought about what if an atomic bomb hits or what if this happens. I just don't give thought to it. So I can't give an honest answer because I've never really given critical thought to it.
I have not either. I have not either.
I haven't.
I've never given even any thought to like how the world might end, Sean.
I
I've
mean,
never given
heck,
any of that stuff thought.
I would love to have the money to build a bunker. I mean, if I'm just
It'd be
being
great. Yeah.
hypothetical about it.
Zombie apocalypse. I'm going Will Smith and what's the movie with the dog in the zombie apocalypse? Is it I Am Legends? Is that what it is? I Am Legend. That sounds right, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie, by the way. It's a good movie. I don't know. Tommy, don't
I
ever
would,
ask me a question again. I don't know.
no, yeah, I would build a nice little bunker and stock up on Crustables, strawberry, by the way, strawberry, not grape.
Yeah.
Ryan and Carson, they love the grape.
It's great. It's good, man.
You know, maybe some Pop Tarts because that's another hot topic on this show a lot of times. Which Pop Tart? Um,
Oh, I love a good Pop Tart. I haven't had a Pop Tart
yeah.
in years, but I love talking about Pop Tarts for some reason. So I don't know why. It's fantastic. All right, let's get through a few more of these. We had Michael, Ryan, and Sean. Can you and Tommy? Awful question, man. Usually have some good ones. That was terrible. Ryan and Sean, can you both give me your thoughts on Lex Cyrus, a comp of possible, and where Notre Dame currently stands in the recruitment? Thanks, guys. No idea where they stand, Michael. I need to see him get on campus first before I have a really good understanding of how interested he is with Notre Dame, because that will ultimately be the test. Thoughts on him, Sean?
He's good.
Dynamic, man. It's fast. He's a really fast player.
It's
I
pretty
would take
good.
him in a heartbeat if he wanted to go to Notre Dame, but I have no idea
Yeah,
if he's interested in Notre Dame yet.
yeah.
This one, another wide receiver question. David Jones says, I know everything is set for wide receiver from the portal, but was there any interest for Notre Dame in Ohio State elite wide receiver, Julian Fleming? I just want to pull this up real quick because, David, I have no idea if they did any. I'm sure they did a little bit of research on him, did their due diligence there, but I am never going to call a wide receiver, Sean, that in 4 years had 79 catches for 963 yards and 7 touchdowns and just had 270 yards receiving in 12 games for the Buckeyes in 2023. Never calling to call that guy elite. Is all I just want to say real quick. Never going to call that guy elite. So I'm very happy with how the portal at wide receiver ended up at Notre Dame. I remember because I don't know if you were on the show, Sean. Someone asked about Julian Fleming when he entered the portal, and my stance from the beginning was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
He's fine. Like, I'm good though. I'm good.
I think he was overhyped coming out of high school, personally, but
Right. Yeah, and the production would back that up. It would back that one up.
yes. So
All right. Someone said how many wide receivers realistically take. I'm just going to knock through a couple of these quick.
that's ironic that we just said that about Julian Fleming, and then Archer says, "All right, I got to go. Flight time."
He doesn't want to say anything negative about
the
Julian.
irony, right? Like you guys are talking bad about an Ohio State guy.
It's funny.
No, have a safe flight, Archer.
Yeah. Yeah, you too. Yeah, absolutely, Archer. Safe flight. 3 to 4 is probably the number there, though, just for that question that came in the chat. We had John A1 with the super chat. Who are the top 5 returning quarterbacks in college football in 2024? Wow. All right, let me think. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think.
Top 5. That's tough. Have fun with
Let
that.
me I'm gonna look up a list and then I'll give you guys my list off of this list. Quarterbacks, college football. Let's see. we had. Here's the list by Sports Illustrated that put a bunch coming back. Carson Beck is on the list, Sean. Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. Quinn Ewers. Dylan Gabriel. Grayson McCall. Jalen Milroe is on here. Shedeur Sanders is on here. All right. Out of the players I'm seeing listed here, I would say in no particular order, Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck. Man, do I have to do top 5? John?
I told you have fun with that.
2? Can I stop at 2? It's not the best quarterback crop coming back next year. It's not the best.
That's why I said have fun. I mean, Riley Leonard would be in your top 5, wouldn't he?
If he was healthy the whole season, then yes, he would be in my top 5. I'm on a wait and see basis with Riley a little bit, just coming back from the injury.
You're not going to throw Miller Moss in there, buddy?
Miller Moss looked great in the bowl game, man. Looked really good in the bowl game. But, I mean, is Quinn Ewers a top 5 guy by default? Like, by default? I
told you it was about to be tough. I told you this was about to be tough.
Cameron Ward, maybe? From Washington State, now going to Miami? Maybe? Man. John, I'll try to come up with a better answer and put it on the board. Like, look, I'm okay with the top 2 there. Again, I said Carson Beck from Georgia, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, but like Fafita. After that, man.
I would definitely put Fafita in my top 5. I would.
Nope. No Fafita? Yeah. I mean, you could convince me of it.
As far as quarterbacks, I would prefer to watch. I would definitely prefer to watch him play.
Yeah. I mean, and Dylan Gabriel's been super productive over the course of his career. So, like, is he in there by default? Like, John, I'll say the top 2 again, Carson Beck, Shedeur Sanders. After that, I will get back to you on that, man, because it's not a sexy list after that one.
I'm very interested in watching Nico.
Yep.
At Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, Jackson Dart has produced.
I like Jackson Dart, actually. I do like Jackson Dart. I thought he looked way better last year than he did the year before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. So, Jackson Dart, I can see him being in the top 5. Jalen Milroe.
Not yet on Jalen Milroe. Not yet on Milroe. Not yet. He could be, but I'm gonna wait a little bit on Milroe, just a little bit. Jackson I liked a lot of what I saw, but
no.
I really like Fafita. If Jedd Fisch had stayed at Arizona, I'd be all in on Noah Fafita. I just want to see it a little bit, but I think if Riley Leonard's healthy, I think Riley Leonard could potentially be in the top 5. But again, I mean, we're projecting off of an injury is a little tough. Jackson Dart would probably be in my top 5. Would probably be, but yeah, I'll get back to you, John, on a little bit more of a definitive list, a little more definitive. It's a great question, though. It's not a great year for quarterback in college football coming back, it doesn't seem. So we had Johnny S. Iowa is self-reporting inappropriate contact with the Bama offensive tackle. They went after Caden Proctor. Do you see more schools trying to get ahead of allegations by self-reporting? More. I wouldn't say more. I mean, Johnny, it's not like the first time we've seen it. I would say it's probably going to be around the same. Some will be ahead of the curve a little bit, but so many things fall through the cracks from the NCAA. I'm not convinced that it's going to be like a trend, I guess. I don't know. But
yeah, as a kid, did you ever tell your parents something truthful that you knew they weren't going to get mad about, but you knew it would give you cool points? And they would always think, oh man, they always tell me. It's kind of like that. Like, you really don't, no one cares. Like, the infractions aren't about to bring harsh penalties to Iowa.
Right.
The penalties only came to light because Caden Proctor opened his mouth.
Yeah, right.
If Caden Proctor,
they self-reported before the hammer came down because he literally let the cat out of the bag.
Said, yeah, I had contact. It's like, kid. But even the kids know it's a wild, wild west right now. They're like, dude.
Yeah. Oh, man. Salty said DJ Uiagalelei. I completely forgot he's at Florida State now, man. Former Clemson and Oregon State quarterback. Well, yeah.
When do we play Florida State again? November? Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yep. Salty had a comment here. Just said, Ryan, will you host an IB happy hour for the IB Indie chapter during your video? Hey man, joking aside there for a second, Salty. If there's some people that live in Indianapolis, we actually have a listener on the board, Sean, that I met out in Indianapolis last year. So I'm not opposed to grabbing a drink with a couple people that are out there in Indy. So if people are out there, man, DM me, message me on the message board, whatever. Well, we can make it happen. We can make something happen. It's an interesting one. An Indy Milton fan. What are the main factors that make Chad Bowden most successful?
Relatability.
Relatability is a great one. Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah. I would say relentlessness as well. Guy just doesn't stop, man. Like he's high effort. Okay. Yeah. High effort there. Relatability thing is a great one. And I think that Chad understands how to relate to multiple people as well, as far as he can relate to the parents, he can relate to the kids, and he's relentless. I think and he's very hardworking. And Sean, honestly, he's a little bit of a silly dude, which is not a negative, right? Like
to say the least, yes.
He does some things to appease the younger crowd, and it seems like he has no shame over it, right? Like he just wants to.
Not afraid to embarrass himself or be the butt of the joke.
Yeah, he's got a really good sense of humor. And yes. Brandon Plesner just said the same thing in the chat, like sense of humor. Yep. Yeah. He's got a really good sense of humor. He takes his job seriously, but he doesn't take himself too seriously, if that makes sense, which I think is perfect situation for him. Perfect.
I think I have a above average sense of humor.
Think so? I have a terrible sense of humor, man.
I
never laugh. Oh yeah. Awful, man. You can't joke with me. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I think I'm a mix of my mom and dad. My dad has a great sense of humor. My mom, on the other hand, is like, you can't crack a joke on her at all.
Yeah.
Like, run immediately.
That's hilarious. Yeah, people that hang out with me, like we just sit there and just stare. We don't say anything.
No, because when I hung out with you that time,
yeah,
we were there for the pro day.
Yep.
Oh, we laughed pretty much the entire.
Sean, I am super serious all the time, man. You don't know what you're talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know this Ryan Roberts right here. When we kicked it at the pro day, we went to the bar and we were laughing.
Yeah.
So,
hey, man, when we get out to Indy, man.
What was that donut spot we went to?
We go to a donut spot? I don't remember that.
Remember the donut spot before we went back to the hotel?
Did we?
I think you got like a caramel because the donuts you got.
Oh,
really
yeah. I can't remember if it was any good or not, but it must not have been.
No, you said it was great.
Did I say it was great? Yeah, I don't remember
that because we were supposed to go back the next day so I could get one.
Yeah.
And we didn't make it.
What was the spot we went to for lunch?
It was some bar. I forget the name of it.
Yeah. That's pretty good though. I think I remember. Yeah. Oh my gosh! All right, we got a couple more. Oh gosh, we got two more. I think. Sean, Chris Ayers would like to ask us, who do Ryan and Sean think is the must-have get for 2025 recruiting? Question goes to Chad as well. Sean, both sides of the ball, offensive and defensively, if you had to pick one player on each side of the ball that is a must get for you, a guy that you want Notre Dame to get in 2025, who would that be? Defensively for me. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Offensively, it would be Tayvion Taylor, I believe, of the guys that are not committed in the class. Do you have anybody else on offense?
I was definitely going to have my Chicago bias come out on the offense side of the ball. So, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. So, Tayvion, defensively, do you have a pick?
Defensively, I would probably at this point lean with, any of the top two linebackers, like Marco. Devin Williams is probably one for me too.
Two players. I would probably end up picking Dallas Golden, the corner, the safety, play anywhere. The other one though that I would love Notre Dame to grab, like, yes, is
I think
Marco
Shanklin.
Jones.
Yeah,
Marco
Marco Jones and Shanklin. You
Yeah.
know what? I'm sorry. I just really
Even Shanklin's
believe
your
at the
guy?
end of the day, they're going to get Shanklin. That's just my belief. So I was kind of thinking outside of guys that, yeah, Marco, and you said Dallas. So
Yeah. Mine would be Dallas Golden and then Taylor on the offense side of the ball. That would be two.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Shanklin might be more important though to your strengthen your argument though, Sean, because
Yeah.
I just mentioned that Viper is a spot that needs to get a little bit more productive moving forward, and he is definitely a Viper. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Last question, Jeff Fluke, hot take, unless any super chats come in late. Notre Dame versus LSU in South Bend for round 1 of the playoffs. Thoughts?
Blowout.
You need to get a little more descriptive than that, my friends. You can't just
Notre Dame's going to beat their butts.
I love it.
Let's go. Book it. Book it. You really want LSU to come up here in the snow or the cold in December? Do they really want to come up here?
That's a good point.
Man, let's get it. Let's go.
That's a good point, man.
Let's go.
That's really funny. Yeah.
So
yeah.
These dudes have snow cones on the field during summer camp, man. They're soft, dude. Man,
someone's gonna clip this, man. Someone's gonna clip it.
I ain't ready for that. You kidding me?
Oh, that's hilarious.
15 degrees in December in South Bend? Yeah. Man, please.
Yeah.
I want to see the press conference because I want to hear the excuses from Brian Kelly because they're going to be good ones. You know, our guys, you know, it's tough when you have to come up to weather like this and we're not used to it. I can just hear the excuses flowing. I can hear them already.
That's really funny. That's hilarious. All right. Well, I think that's a good one to end it. I think home field advantage in the playoffs is going to be something that's going to be very interesting for the playoffs moving forward for college football. And we'll sure talk about a lot about that more in the future. But I want to thank everybody again so much for joining us today here on the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Before you leave, if you hit that like button for us, it'd be very much appreciated. If you hit that notification bell and subscribe to the podcast or listen to us on any and all of your favorite podcast platforms, please review, subscribe, message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com. That's Sean Davis. I am Ryan Roberts. Hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again very soon here on the Irish Breakdown podcast.